Introduction to Zhu Tian Sword Ancestor. I have a sword that gathers the power of the 8 wildernesses, condenses the shape of the 4 symbols, portrays the changes of yin and yang, and casts Zhu Tian Sword. Chapter 1. Reincarnation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. When the first light of the morning fell on Funyo village, Lu Qing suddenly woke up. But when he saw himself in a familiar thatched cottage, his eyes were filled with surprise. How could I be here? Yeah, how could he be here? He couldn't be more familiar with this thatched cottage, because it was his home before embarking on his path to immortality. But how could he appear here the moment before, even though he was still fighting against the reincarnation demon lord and had already reached a critical moment of life and death? Do you think I have fallen into the illusion of reincarnation? When he thought about it this way, Lu Qing began to use the True Yuan's secret technique, intending to break through this illusion. But the next moment he was shocked to find that his dantian was empty. What's going on? Even if I were in the illusion of reincarnation, how could I lose all my cultivation? Is it? In thought, what came to Lu Qing's mind? He remembers that when he made the final decision with the reincarnation demon once shouted, "Even though I can't kill you now, killing you in the past was like crushing an ant." At that time, he was about to fight the reincarnation demon to the death, but he didn't pay much attention to this sentence. But now, thinking about it, Lu Qing's face instantly turned pale. Every demon lord has his own divine power. Can reincarnation really bring about reincarnation? Lu Qing didn't want to believe his speculation, but now he couldn't think of any other possibilities besides this explanation in his situation. If that's the case, then isn't your situation very dangerous? As the reincarnation demon lord said, in the end, the future he cannot kill himself, but the past he can. The present he is still immortal, not to mention the demon lord, just a demon weapon. It is easy to kill oneself. So what should I do now with myself? Since the reincarnation demon lord uses the technique of reincarnation, he must have a way to find me. At this moment, Lu Qing was anxiously spinning around. If the reincarnation demon lord came knocking on him, not only would he die, but also his family and the entire Funyo village. Thinking of his family, Lu Qing was filled with a deep sense of debt. In his past life, he was selected by the immortal cultivation sect due to his talent for cultivation. He had been away for more than 50 years. When he returned to Funyo village, his parents were no longer there. And in this life, did his parents, who were at stake, lose their lives long ago? No. Never. In terms of time, it should not be long before I am selected by the immortal sect. As long as I enter the immortal sect, unless the reincarnation demon lord comes in person, I will definitely not be able to kill myself with those demon weapons. Only in this way can we pray that the reincarnation demon will come slower. Just as Lu Qing was facing the possibility of the reincarnation demon lord attacking at any time and was helpless and could only pray, suddenly a black vortex appeared in front of him, and he was forcibly pulled inside. Where is this? Looking around, it seemed as if there was no end, empty, but with enough spiritual energy to crystallize in the space. Lu Qing muttered to herself. "This is your sea of knowledge." Suddenly a voice out of thin air told him the answer. My sea of knowledge. Lu Qing couldn't remember how his sea of knowledge looked. More precisely, this is the Sword Ancestor's tower in your sea of consciousness. Sword Ancestor's tower. Lu Qing suddenly thought of something. Indeed, there was a 9-story black tower in his sea of consciousness, which he had accidentally obtained while traveling in a secret realm in his previous life. He had tried every means to enter the tower, but even if he had reached the Mahayana realm, he could not touch the Black Tower. Let me ask you, if you were practicing swordsmanship, why would you shine your sword? The voice suddenly asked. Sword cultivation. By the way, the other party just said, this is the Tower of Sword Ancestors. Is it possible that this Black Tower is actually the inheritance site of Sword Ancestors? Sword Ancestor. Lu Qing was already at the pinnacle of his past life, but he had never heard of anyone in the world who could be called the ancestor of swords. Become a sword cultivator. Lu Qing's heart instantly became eager. In this world of cultivating immortals, there are two types of cultivation. One is Dharma cultivation and the other is sword cultivation. In his previous life, Lu Qing was a Dharma cultivator who had reached the Mahayana realm and was only one step away from crossing the tribulation to become an immortal. Although he was already a Dharma practitioner in the Mahayana realm in his previous life, it must be acknowledged that under the same realm, the combat power of sword cultivators is definitely superior to that of Dharma cultivators. If he can become a sword cultivator, then his achievements in this life are definitely higher than those in the previous life. Lu Qing, who had made up his mind to switch to sword cultivation in this lifetime, did not hesitate in the face of the other party's questions and gave an answer. If I were to cultivate swordsmanship, I would definitely exterminate all the demons and bring back the world's prosperity. When Lu Qing said this, his eyes were full of killing intent, but also incredibly resolute. As soon as Lu Qing finished speaking, there was a surge of demonic energy in the void not far away. Seeing this turbulent demonic energy, Lu Qing's eyes burst with murderous intent, while also watching the gradually condensed black humanoid monster with vigilance. Since you want to exterminate all the heavenly demons, then kill him. His cultivation level will be one level higher than yours, and the possibility of you being killed by him will be even greater. Of course, you can also surrender at any time to save your life and leave this place, but the Sword Ancestor's tower will also leave you. As the voice spoke, Lu Qing felt an extra force in his dantian, but upon closer inspection, it turned out to be 10 layers of qi cultivation. This is a multiple-choice question, but would Lu Qing choose? No, for him, when the demon appeared in front of him, the life and death between him and the demon in front of him had nothing to do with the test of the Sword Ancestor Tower, but rather the endless grudges between him and the demon. Almost without any hesitation, Lu Qing quickly formed a seal in his hand. The seal he formed was created by him in a previous life to deal with extraterrestrial demons. This seal is specifically aimed at demons, but it also has high demands on the signer themselves. If it is less than the golden elixir, it can result in complete loss of cultivation, and in severe cases, it can lead to death and elimination. However, facing the anger and killing intent of the demon, he completely ignored this point. Moreover, the other party was a higher realm than him, equivalent to a demon weapon during the foundation building period. At this time, even if he died, he had to drag the other party to bury him. As for whether it's worth it or not, this is not something that Lu Qing would consider. Letting him face the demon and retreat is even more uncomfortable than killing him. Various scenes of his past life emerged before his eyes, with his lover, mentor, fellow disciples, and friends all dying in battle with the demons, like a slideshow. It made his heart ache like a knife, but also brought his anger to its extreme. Die for me, eliminate the demon seal. Lu Qing let out a loud roar, and at this moment, his body was already under extreme consumption of spiritual power, bleeding from his 7 holes, looking extremely terrifying. However, they still bravely welcomed the same attacking demon without hesitation. His golden light burst forth in his hand, condensing into a golden palm covered in runes and pressing against the incoming celestial demon. And that day, the demon just touched this golden palm, as if white snow had encountered boiling water and dissipated instantly without leaving any trace. Everything returned to calm in an instant, as Lu Qing's killing intent and madness in his eyes slowly dissipated as he watched the celestial demon disappear without a trace. Instead, he felt endless fatigue and the divine light gradually dimmed. Unable to close her eyes for a moment, Lu Qing's lips were wriggling, but this faint and inaudible voice was saying, "There are still many in this world without me, Lu Qing. But if anyone encounters a demon, even if they are not defeated, I, Lu Qing, will definitely execute them." At the moment when Lu Qing fell, the space suddenly shook, and time traced back in this space. With a palm of the demon-slaying hand just now, the extraterrestrial demon reappeared. The time tracing back suddenly stopped at the moment when Lu Qing appeared here. I'm not dead. Lu Qing looked around in surprise. But at this moment, a black giant monument slowly descended from the sky, accompanied by a vast and boundless aura emanating from above, making people feel a sense of reverence when facing it. You have passed the test, and the Sword Ancestor has passed down here. I will forget your understanding and never forget my original intention. The voice said, gradually becoming ethereal, as if it had gone far away, and as if it had completely dissipated. At this moment, Lu Qing devoted all his heart and soul to the giant monument, and saw 4 large characters placed on top of it, the Zhu Tian. Looking further down, what caught the eye was a domineering and powerful statement. I have a sword that gathers the power of the 8 wildernesses, condenses the shape of the 4 symbols, portrays the changes of yin and yang, and casts a sword that slays the heavens. I don't know what level this Zhu Tian Sword Classic is, but since it is passed down from the Sword Ancestor, it should not be bad, Lu Qing thought while reading the Zhu Tian Sword Classic. Sword cultivation, like Dharma cultivation, also has strengths and weaknesses. The difference between strengths and weaknesses lies not only in the realm, but also in the level of the sword code used in sword cultivation. The sword code used in sword cultivation is divided into 9 levels, including lower, middle, and upper levels. The different levels of the sword code not only affect the strength of the condensed flying sword, but also affect the speed of cultivation. After browsing it for a while, Lu Qing has already remembered that Zhu Tian in his heart. Since you have obtained this sword scripture, let's use the spiritual energy in the Tower of Sword Ancestor to cultivate. So, waiting for the Reincarnation Demon Lord to find you can be considered somewhat self-protective. After secretly sighing, Lu Qing silently recited the Heaven-Slaying Sword Classic and began to practice. What's going on? As Lu Qing practiced the Zhu Tian, he realized that it was different from what he knew. As is well known, both the Dharma and sword cultivators condense the true or sword elements in the elixir field, the Dharma cultivators condense the Tao seeds, building foundations, and the sword cultivators gathered the sword embryos, flying swords of his own destiny. However, the spiritual power absorbed by this Zhu Tian actually converged into the Tan, which is a bit below his chest. The discovery of this difference gave Lu Qing a bold idea. If that's the case, can I also practice Dharma? This idea immediately excited Lu Qing. If he could really practice swordsmanship together, not to mention how amazing his combat power would be, he would be the first person in history. With a burst of excitement in his heart, the operation of the sword classic almost went wrong, and he quickly tidied up his mind. Can we wait for a while before discussing whether it's possible to practice the same technique as the sword? Time passed by bit, and Lu Qing's heart was once again filled with surprise. Why is your cultivation speed so fast? After all, I have only been practicing for a day. Why did I reach the level of qi cultivation? Is there any unexpected benefit to practicing in this black tower, or is it due to the reasons in the Heaven-Slaying Sword Classic? After some noise, it was hard for Lu Qing, who couldn't figure out the reason behind it, to think about it again. Since his cultivation speed was so fast, he continued to cultivate. Now that nothing is important to improve his cultivation, Lu Qing suppressed the impulse to reunite with his parents and began to cultivate with peace of mind. Unconsciously, half a year has passed in a blink of an eye. The spiritual cyclone condensed from Lu Qingtan's cultivation of the Zhu Tian Sword Classic has reached the level of 10 layers of qi cultivation. Suddenly, the spiritual cyclone began to spin wildly. Lu Qing was overjoyed, knowing that this was a sign of wanting to condense the sword embryo. The spiritual cyclone spun even faster, and after a while, the spinning spiritual cyclone suddenly shrank, emitting a blue aura. Upon closer inspection, the spiritual cyclone had already condensed into a blue sword the length of a thumb. A first-grade water spirit sword with water attributes. Although Lu Qin was not a sword cultivator in his previous life, he had already reached the Mahayana period of Dharma cultivation, which can be said to be knowledgeable, so he had a deep understanding of the flying sword level of sword cultivators. After discovering that the Destiny flying sword he had condensed was only a first-class water spirit sword, Lu Qin felt inexplicably disappointed when he went to the book garden www.zhaozhuiyuan.com. He thought that this heaven-slaying sword classic would be an amazing sword cultivation treasure, but he didn't expect it to be just a first-class sword cultivation classic. But just as he was feeling lost, he suddenly realized that a wisp of spiritual power had sprouted within his scent, and the newly condensed water spirit sword automatically moved out of its middle position and retreated to the side. What's going on here? What does the birth of a new strand of spiritual energy mean? Lu Qin is very clear in his heart, which means he can condense the cyclone and then condense a sword embryo. After a moment of contemplation, Lu Qin's heart trembled, gathering the power of the 8 wildernesses. Is this the power of gathering the 8 wildernesses? The sword called Zhu Ba Huang is the condensation of 8 innate flying swords with different attributes. After figuring it out, Lu Qin felt like his whole body was trembling. As far as he knew, no sword cultivator had more than one original flying sword, but he could have 8. This represents something that Lu Qin knew very well in his heart. The 8 fate flying swords foreshadowed that if he were in the same realm, his sword energy would be 8 times that of others. After a while, Lu Qin finally regained his senses from the shock and excitement. He was about to continue his cultivation while the iron was still hot when he suddenly realized that he had been practicing in the Black Tower for half a year. His parents were probably already worried. If he didn't go out yet, he didn't know what would make them worried. Moreover, the demon he was worried about would come or not. If it had already arrived, wouldn't it be very dangerous for his parents without him? Thinking of this, he had no intention of continuing his cultivation. Reincarnation Demon Lord, if I can escape this calamity this time, I will find you to calculate the accounts of the previous life well. As she swore in her heart, Lu Qin withdrew from the Black Tower with a sudden movement. Chapter 2. Magic Attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Chapter 2 Magic Attack. Just as he left the Black Tower, Lu Qin heard the crying of a woman outside her ear. Pushing out the door, Lu Qin's surprised eyes met those of his parents. After a brief moment of confusion, the mother, Lu Xianxia, rushed up and hugged Lu Qin tightly, crying bitterly, as if afraid that if she let go, her son would disappear again. Qing'er. Where have you been? Do you know how worried my mother is about missing you? How could she come back without saying a word? Listening to his mother's crying in his ear, Lu Qin felt both a heart-wrenching pain and an immense warmth, unable to speak for a moment. For him, he has been separated from his parents for over 1,000 years, and the guilt in his heart has continued for thousands of years. His guilt towards his parents has also become the demon in his heart that has yet to take that last step and ascend to immortality. Mother, father. Lu Qin opened his eyes and tightly gripped his mother's rough palm, his gaze sweeping over her tearful face and his father sitting on the threshold, staring blankly with dry smoke in his mouth. He, who had not shed tears for countless years, couldn't stop his tears like broken beads at this moment. The only gratitude he had for the Reincarnation Demon Lord was undoubtedly that he had reunited with his parents. At this moment, Lu's father also regained his senses, but he was holding the smoking bag and pot in his hand, and was so angry that he wanted to greet Lu Qin. As he walked, he cursed, "Bunny, you've been fooling around there for a month now, and you didn't even say hello. I must have broken your dog leg today." January. Upon hearing this, Lu Qin was greatly surprised. Didn't he enter the Black Tower for half a year? Is it, "My surname is Lu, what are you doing? If you dare to touch my son, I will fight with you." Lu Zhang turned around and placed Lu Qinghu behind her. From her expression, everyone could tell that what she said was achievable. Lu's father was immediately in a dilemma. After a while, he suddenly crouched down and started smoking angrily. "Stinky woman, go kill the chicken in the circle. Today, I want to eat chicken." Both Lu Qing and Lu Zhang couldn't help but laugh. "Why are you laughing? Didn't you hear that your man wants to eat chicken today?" Lu Fu's blush. Okay, I'll go, you awkward old thing." Lu Zhang scolded with a smile and rolled up her sleeves to catch a chicken in the circle. Listening to the parents' bickering that existed in the distant memory, Lu Qing's cold heart once again felt warmth as countless relatives and friends had already died. "Tell me, where have you been fooling around for the past month?" Lu's father asked when Lu Zhang left. Lu Qing crouched side by side on the ground, imitating his father's appearance, and spoke out the words he had already thought of in his heart. "A month ago, I met a fairy, and the fairy saw that I had extraordinary abilities, so he took me as an apprentice." Upon hearing these words, Lu Fu suddenly stood up and looked at Lu Qing with a gaze that was not as casual as his own son's. What are you saying? The immortal took you as his disciple, so aren't you also a fairy? Old man, come over and take a look. What's wrong with our chicken? Why is it constantly flapping inside the chicken coop?" exclaimed Lu Zhang, who was inside the coop. "Pounce and thump, what are you howling about? Stupid woman." Because his own son became a fairy, Lu Fu, who was filled with shock and ecstasy, heard his wife's untimely screams and turned around to curse. "What?" But the next moment, Lu Qing's face changed because he felt the demonic aura, which was permeating the air. "Oh my! Old man, come on, why is our chicken pecking at me like crazy?" Lu Zhang's screams erupted again, and upon hearing the sound, a blue flying sword with condensed sword elements flashed out, instantly killing all the chickens that were crazily pecking at Lu Zhang. "Mom, are you okay?" At this moment, Lu Zhang's face was full of shock and uncertainty. Just now, the harmless domestic chicken in her eyes gave her a feeling of wanting to peck at her. "How could you, a despicable woman, kill all the chickens?" Upon hearing the commotion, Lu Fu, who came slowly, looked at the dead chickens on the ground and immediately looked angry. He raised his hand and slapped Lu Zhang in the face. Lu Zhang, who was slapped in the face, suddenly had a sharp look in her eyes. "If you dare to hit me with your surname Lu, I will fight with you." Looking at his parents with fierce expressions on their faces, who were about to fight each other, Lu Qing knew in his heart that their every move was already influenced by the demonic energy. He quickly infused his spiritual power into their bodies to dispel the demonic energy that had already entered them. Lu Fu and Lu Zhang suddenly woke up, both with a bewildered expression on their faces. At this moment, Lu Qing looked up at the sky with a serious expression on his face. Just as he looked up, a thunderbolt exploded, followed by a prominent spatial crack where the thunderbolt exploded. A pitch-black claw protruded from the space crack, followed by a second claw. Gradually, the space crack expanded, and a completely pitch-black humanoid monster emerged from the space crack. Next came the second, third, and fourth monsters, until the fifth one, a monster that was one circle larger than the previous four, emerged from the space crack, which slowly closed. The demonic aura that was originally invisible to the naked eye in the air, with the appearance of these 5 monsters, has taken on essence. The surrounding heaven and earth have darkened under the invasion of the demonic aura emanating from their bodies. Seeing the appearance of these 5 monsters, Lu Qing secretly felt bitter in his heart. In his past life, he had fought countless battles with extraterrestrial demons, making him the mortal enemy of extraterrestrial demons. Naturally, he had a clear understanding of the level division of extraterrestrial demons. The 4 extraterrestrial demons that appeared earlier are the lowest level beings among the extraterrestrial demons, demon soldiers, which are equivalent to the initial realm of building foundations. The last one that emerged was a tall and slightly horned one, which is equivalent to a quasi-demon general in the later stage of building foundations. If given some time to wait for the horns on his head to grow to an inch long, it would be equivalent to the last demon general in the Golden Elixir period. Although he is currently a sword cultivator, he has already condensed his sword embryo. If he were to confront a later stage of foundation building, he would naturally not be afraid. However, the problem is that the opponent not only has one quasi-demon general, but also 4 demon weapons. In addition, the quasi-demon generals of extraterrestrial demons are even more powerful than ordinary human race foundation building later stages. Lu Fu and Lu Zhang were already speechless by the sudden appearance of the monster. Standing behind Lu Qing, they looked at the 5 monsters that appeared in front of them in terror. You have the demonic reincarnation aura on you, it seems that you are the mortal enemy of the demon clan outside my domain. Although Lu Qin was wary of the other party in his heart, his hatred towards the extraterrestrial demons made it impossible for him to show any weakness in front of them. So even in adversity at this moment, Lu Qin still had a murderous intent on the 5 demon eyes outside the domain in front of him. I thought it would be the 3-eyed thief from Hueluan, but I don't want it to be you miscellaneous fish. He. The quasi-demon general led by him chuckled, dealing with you is just a mortal. You need to trouble the demon lord. When we catch you back outside the domain, the demon lord will make your life more difficult than death. But the demon lord said that it will be very interesting for you to swear to kill all the people of our heavenly demon clan and become a heavenly demon outside the domain. Upon hearing the last sentence, Lu Qing's pupils shrank. Indeed, compared to killing him, turning him into an extraterrestrial demon would make his life more difficult than death. You delusions. Is it delusional? Is this unclear? Little ones, give it to me. The quasi-demon pointed to Lu Qing and shouted. The 4 magic soldiers who received the command all rushed towards the landing green. Faced with the incoming demonic army, Lu Qing couldn't retreat. Behind him were his parents. Without his spiritual protection, his parents would inevitably be insane under the demonic aura. Then let me try the power of sword cultivation. Lu Qing let out a low moan in his heart and pointed to the incoming demon weapon. Go. With a low cry from Lu Qing, a blue sword, Yuan Fei Jian, suddenly shot away from his fingertips. In a moment of negligence, the flying sword shot in from the center of a demon soldier's eyebrow and shot out from the back of his head. The black magic energy suddenly surged out like a spring from the center of the demon soldier's eyebrow and the back of his head, dissipating completely in an instant. Suddenly encountering such an accident, the other 3 demonic soldiers, who were immediately startled, forcefully stopped their bodies, while the quasi-demonic general exclaimed in surprise behind the scenes, sword cultivation. How could this be? The demon lord clearly said, you are just an ordinary person now. No. Why can't I see any sword element fluctuations on you that belong to sword cultivation? However, the quasi-demon general was unaware that the Zhu Tian Sword Classic, which was cultivated by Lu Qing, had its own destiny flying sword stored in the underworld, and its power gathered in the underworld. Unlike ordinary cultivators, its power gathered in the elixir field and flowed through the meridians, so it could not be easily detected. Unexpectedly, there are still many things you don't know. After a moment of shock, the quasi-demon general also calmed down and sneered, even if you are a sword cultivator, you can only condense the sword with the sword element, and cannot summon the sword form entity. It should only be a sword embryo realm. Killing you is still like crushing an ant. Give it all to me, what are you waiting for? Being scolded by the quasi-demon general, 3 demon soldiers screamed and attacked Lu Qing. This time, they already knew that Lu Qing was a sword cultivator, so they would not be without defense. The 3 demons dispersed and launched attacks on Lu Qing from different directions. If it were placed in normal times, Lu Qing would not have let the 3 demons besiege him, but now he can only be a target for the safety of his parents. Lu Qing pointed straight at the closest demon weapon to him, and the sword Yuan flying sword shot away. That day, the demon had to release the demonic energy to block it, but he didn't want to be instantly pierced by the sword Yuan flying sword and passed through his chest. Lu Qing once again instantly killed a demonic weapon, facing the other attacking demonic weapon with a palm, blocking it, but lost control of the last demonic weapon. Suddenly, he was stabbed in the shoulder by the claws of the demon soldier. This was also because he had rich combat experience in his past life and had avoided the key point in advance, otherwise this claw would have pierced his heart. Die for me. With a roar, the sword Yuan flying sword reappeared, piercing through the forehead of his demonic weapon. Lu Qing's distraction once again gave the demonic weapon a chance to be stopped by his palm. I saw that the demon soldier's body suddenly wrapped around Lu Qing's arm like a snake, and then climbed along the arm, firmly binding him. The sharp mouth full of sharp teeth suddenly opened larger than a human head, about to swallow Lu Qing in one gulp. At the critical moment, the sword Yuan flying sword appeared in Lu Qing's hand, and he decisively thrust it backwards. This thrust slanted upwards from his lower abdomen, penetrating his lower abdomen and also piercing the chest of the demon soldier. The movements of the demonic soldiers came to a sudden halt, and the demonic energy surged out wildly, dissipating into the clouds. Pa good, good, worthy of being the mortal enemy of the demon outside my domain. This ferocity is not as much as that of the demon clan outside my domain. The sound of quasi-demon generals clapping and cheering came from above. At this moment, Lu Qing was already soaked in blood and on the verge of collapse, but as he stood with his sword, he still looked at the quasi-demon general above his head with a lingering killing intent. "Oh, it's your turn to suffer." Lu Qing gasped for breath. The quasi-demon general seemed to have heard a huge joke and played with it. "Do you want me to die? Regardless of whether you or I already have a strength gap, now you are seriously injured and foolish enough to protect the two useless people behind you. What are you doing to kill me? You have too much to say." Lu Qing shouted low, his sword trembling as he pointed towards the demon. The heavenly demon gave a cold smile and snapped his fingers, only to see the magic energy gathering around him, condensing into marbles the size of magic balls. "Go." With a low cry from the heavenly demon, countless magic balls poured down towards the place where Lu Qing was, like a sudden storm. Lu Qing immediately inserted his sword into the ground, and the sword elements scattered outside his body, forming a light shield that enveloped him and his parents. In an instant, the magic ball hit the light shield, causing a dense explosion. "I see how long you can resist it." The heavenly demon laughed heartily. He knew very well that at this moment, the consumption of Lu Qing's sword element was huge, and it wouldn't take long for his sword element to run out. Lu Qing's eyes were devoid of any fear. For him, dying on the road to slaying demons was his request, and the only thing he couldn't let go of at this moment was his parents behind him. "Dad, Mom, it's the child who can't wait for you." At this moment, the debt owed to his parents in his past and present lives surged in Lu Qing's heart, making his voice tremble as he spoke. He did not realize that his parents behind him had quietly grasped each other's hands. Couples who had been together for half a lifetime, although they often bickered, this was a way of getting along with each other as a couple. In their hearts, they had already regarded each other as an inseparable part of their lives. And Lu Qing is the crystallization of their love. Perhaps as farmers and women, they do not know what love is, but their instincts at this moment drive them to make their own decisions. Although your mother and I don't know what you've been through this month, Qinger, we all know very well that our son is a good person. In the face of life and death, he didn't abandon his parents, and in the face of strong enemies, he didn't back down. Remember, parents are proud to have a son like you, and you must live a good life for them. Listening to his father's words, Lu Qing felt uneasy in his heart. When he suddenly turned around to look, he saw his father and mother smiling as they walked out of the light mask. An extremely cruel scene suddenly occurred in front of Lu Qing, and the parents who had exited the mask were instantly submerged by the magic ball, with no blood or bones left. No. Lu Qing's bloody roar echoed through the entire Funyo village in an instant. Ha ha ha. Seeing Lu Qing's painful expression, Tianma laughed wildly. In a teasing and seductive tone, he said, "This is humanity, weak and fragile. You must be very painful now, right? Unfortunately, as a demon with no emotions, I cannot feel it. What should I do? Why don't you give up resisting and transform into a demon, so that you don't have to suffer anymore and enjoy the pleasure of killing with us? I want you to die, I want you to die. I want you to die." Lu Qing looked crazy, with a ferocious appearance and red eyes. In his wild roar, the sword Yuan flying sword transformed into a blue lightning bolt and shot out, several times faster than before. The flying sword mercilessly pierced through the demon's body as he relaxed his guard and laughed wildly, causing his laughter to abruptly stop. The world instantly returned to tranquility. The wind moved slowly, but the celestial demon that had been pierced through its body did not dissipate its demonic energy like the previous demon soldiers. Deep laughter rang out without warning, and the voice grew louder and more wild. Ha ha ha. In the midst of this laughter, the demon's body was filled with a surge of demonic energy, and a familiar aura filled Lu Qing's mind. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, his pupils gradually contracted in the surging changes of the demonic energy, until the demonic energy completely condensed and transformed into a demonic face that he was extremely familiar with. His eyes suddenly contracted like pinholes. Reincarnation Demon Lord. That's right. At this moment, the quasi-demon general turned into the reincarnation demon king. More precisely, the quasi-demon general was actually transformed by the reincarnation demon king. At this moment, the vertical eye on the forehead of the reincarnation demon lord is no longer there, and his slender fingers caress the forehead. In a low voice, he said, "Are you surprised or not? Are you surprised or not? You made me lose my reincarnation eyes for you. How could I not come personally?" Speaking of this, the reincarnation demon lord smiled strangely, "But I have changed my mind. Seeing the pain you had just suffered from losing your parents, I feel that killing you like this is really too cheap for you. Since your human emotions are so rich, then I will kill all the close people around you and let you experience the pain you have experienced now time and time again. I think that would be more interesting, right? What do you think, Lu Qing?" Lu Qing's body trembled, and he had experienced the pain of losing everything. He was well aware of the terror, but now the reincarnation demon lord had said in front of him that he wanted to kill all the people close to him. At this moment, his anger was uncontrollable. If it weren't for the previous blow, he would have exhausted all his sword energy. At this moment, even though he knew he was invincible, he had to fight to the death with the reincarnation demon lord. However, now he can only watch the reincarnation demon lord laugh and retreat into the space crack that reappears. Ah! When the spatial crack closed, the figure of the reincarnation demon disappeared, and Lu Qing raised himself to the sky and let out an unwilling roar. Under intense psychological stimulation, he, who was already seriously injured, was forced to spit out a mouthful of blood while leaning up and falling unconscious. Chapter 3. Old Friends. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, old friends. A flying boat flew high in the sky, and Lu Qing slowly opened his eyes. The dazzling sunlight made him unable to help but raise his hand to cover it. "Senior sister Yu, he's awake." Upon hearing this, Lu Qing looked around and realized that he was on a flying boat, surrounded by people. The person standing at the bow of the boat, known as Sister Yu, slowly turned around upon hearing this. In the moment she turned around, it seemed that the whole world had dimmed because of her, and all the light had gathered on her at that moment. This should be such a stunning woman, but seeing her in white clothes surpasses snow. Her eyebrows and eyes are picturesque, her black hair draped over her shoulders, her snowy skin and goose neck, her bright eyes slightly open like a pool of spring water, clear and clear, touching the soul. Under the sunlight, her graceful figure is outlined, with a gentle and elegant temperament flowing through her every move. She is not a woman who should be in the mortal world, but the fairy who emerged from the painting and fell into the mortal world. At the moment of seeing this woman, Lu Qing's heart couldn't help but tremble, and he couldn't help but shout out the other person's name, Xinrui. Everyone present was stunned at the words. "How do you know my name?" Yu Xinrui walked slowly, paused, and frowned as she asked. "How would I know your name?" Lu Qing smiled lightly, tears in her eyes, "Because you are my wife." Everyone saw his strange reaction and not only looked at him with a wary gaze. But listening to Lu Qing staring fixedly at the sky above her head, she murmured, "Perhaps it's because of our fate. When I see you, I have your name in my heart." Everyone wouldn't believe him. Lu Qing's next move surprised them greatly, as he stood up unsteadily, pretending to jump off the boat. At this moment, Lu Qing naturally didn't want to leave. He didn't know how happy he was to reunite with his fallen lover in his past life, but he couldn't do it. The words of the reincarnation demon lord still lingered in his ears. He didn't want to experience the scene of Xinrui dying in front of him like in his previous life, let alone lose his beloved after losing his parents and loved ones. Seeing that Lu Qing was about to jump off the boat, Yu Xinrui flashed and held on to Lu Qing's shoulder. "The deceased has passed away, shouldn't you, as a man, be thinking about how to seek revenge at this moment? Why should you commit suicide?" Yu Xinrui clearly misunderstood, and in her eyes, Lu Qing was just an ordinary person. Looking at Yu Xinrui's gaze, Lu Qing saw the concern for herself in her eyes. "You are still the same, even a mortal life you value so much. Or in other words, the entire Qingtian gate is also like this, with the mandate of Qingtian to protect the people. If I say, keep me, you will all die. Upon hearing this, Yu Xinrui was clearly taken aback. "If we leave you as a mortal, we will all die." But Lu Qing's resolute gaze was telling her that the person in front of her was not joking with her. "Are you talking about extraterrestrial demons?" Yu Xinrui could guess this, which was also the reason why he was able to save Lu Qing. At that time, she was collecting disciples outside under the name of her sect. Suddenly, she felt a surge of demonic energy from 100 miles away, so she rushed over alone without hesitation. When she arrived, she found that the entire Funyo village was unbearable to see, and the villagers had been demonized, devouring and tearing each other to death. Under the sweep of divine consciousness, it was discovered that there was still one person alive, who is now Lu Qing. Lu Qing nodded and was about to say something when he saw Xianrui's face solemn. "Are you the heavenly spirit root?" The so-called spiritual root refers to the spiritual root qualifications that cultivators must possess, which can be roughly divided into 3 categories: heaven, earth, and human. Human spiritual roots generally refer to spiritual roots without ultimate attributes, such as ordinary gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. Earthly spiritual roots refer to spiritual roots with ultimate attributes, such as ice, thunder, wind, inflammation, and even time and space. Of course, there are many ultimate attributes among them, which are constantly changing and difficult to fully express. And the heavenly spirit root has at least 2 or more ultimate spiritual roots. Lu Qing, who had intended to tell Yu Xinrui about the matter, knew immediately that she had misunderstood. The heavenly spirit root is a top-notch qualification for cultivation. It not only has a fast cultivation speed, but also possesses various ultimate attributes. When it reaches the stage of building the foundation and solidifying the Tao seed, it will also obtain various innate divine powers that cannot be compared to other spiritual roots. It is precisely because of the power of the heavenly spirit root that external demons have always eradicated the owner of the heavenly spirit root when they discover it. Did you misunderstand? After a moment of thought, Lu Qing realized that this was not a bad thing. Although he had the intention to tell Yu Xinrui the truth, the Qingtian gate was not a single entity. If someone with ulterior motives found out, he would face more than just extraterrestrial demons. Although Lu Qing had a clear understanding of his spiritual roots and abilities in his heart, he shook his head in confusion. "I don't know, I only know that those monsters slaughtered Funyo village, seemingly to kill me. Senior sister Yu, how could this kid possibly be a heavenly spirit root? The act of jumping off the boat just now was just to show us. From my perspective, he must have defected to the demon's secret agents outside the domain. Upon hearing these words, all the members of Qingtian Gate nodded in agreement. It's easy to determine whether it's a spiritual plate or not. In the palm of Yu Xinrui's hand, there was an additional disc filled with runes. Place your palm on it to measure your spiritual root aptitude, she said as Yu Xinrui's words fell. The disciples of Qingtian sect present stared fixedly at Lu Qing. Zhou Shen's spiritual power surged, and the atmosphere immediately became extremely tense. At this moment, Lu Qing also realized that going and staying were not his options from the beginning. Under the fierce gaze of everyone, Lu Qing placed his palm on the spirit measuring plate. In an instant, a dazzling white light shone on the measuring plate. White light is a characteristic of the heavenly spirit root. Really it's the heavenly spirit root. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. This is the heavenly spirit root, and there are only 2 people in the entire Qingtian Gate. Yu Xinrui's eyes were also filled with joy. She couldn't believe that this time she was ordered to go down the mountain to recruit disciples and found the owner of a heavenly spiritual root. However, her emotions quickly stabilized and she looked at Lu Qing seriously, saying, "Even so, I can't get rid of your suspicion. You can tell me why you are alive, since that extraterrestrial demon came to kill you and everyone is dead." The people who were shocked by Lu Qingtian's spiritual roots just now immediately realized that yes, this is the key to the problem. I don't know either. That day, the demon trapped me and wanted to devour me in one gulp. A little sword light flashed by, piercing me and the demon together, and then I knew nothing. A sword light flashed by. Is it Jian Xiu? The information revealed by Lu Qing once again surprised everyone. After careful consideration among the people, everything became clear. Not all cultivators care about the lives of ordinary people like Qingtian men, especially sword cultivators who have always been cold and ruthless. They would choose this labor-saving method to kill them together with extraterrestrial demons. It is normal to go to the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Doubts were dispelled, and everyone's vigilance towards Lu Qing was immediately relieved. Yu Xinrui asked, "Would you like to join my Qingtian Gate?" She already had a gentle and elegant temperament, and with a soft voice asking at this moment, Lu Qing almost agreed in one fell swoop. "Aren't you afraid that external demons will come to Qingtian Gate?" Yu Xinrui smiled dumbfounded and said, "My Qingtian Gate is the largest sect in the southern world. The demons from outside the region are not enough to attack my Qingtian Gate just for your own spiritual roots. Moreover, I, the Heavenly Gate, inherit the mandate of heaven and protect the common people. How could I give up the lives of the common people and compromise with the heavenly demons? If I come, I, the Heavenly Gate, will make it impossible for it to come back." Lu Qing didn't care about Yu Xinrui's previous words. Of course, it wasn't as simple for the extraterrestrial demons to target him as the heavenly spirit root. However, Yu Xinrui's next sentence deeply touched him. He was a member of the Qingtian Gate in his previous life, and he knew very well that what Yu Xinrui said was not false, but true. Isn't the Qingtian Gate in his previous life a blessing from Qingtian, and ultimately summoned a large army of demons from outside the region to besiege and destroy it? Thinking of the downfall of Qingtian Gate, Lu Qing's heart wavered as he left. Even without his joining, Qingtian Gate could not have escaped the crisis of downfall. Why didn't he join Qingtian Gate early and use what he learned in his past life to enhance its overall strength? You should know that the downfall of the Qingtian Gate in the previous life was not completely defeated by external demons. With his joining of the Qingtian Gate, his strength will definitely be promoted. Will he still follow the old path of downfall? With the support of the Qingtian Gate, he would not fight alone like in his previous life, eliminate the demons, and have a greater confidence in his long-cherished wish of revenge. At the thought of this, Lu Qing's heart was filled with passion. Qingtian Gate, after 500 years of separation, should go back and take a look. Chapter 4. Narrow Avenues for Enemies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Tiannan, Songming Mountain. Songming Mountain stretches for thousands of miles, starting from a wild ancient land in the west and facing the Shanghai Sea in the east, like a crouching dragon. Countless peaks and ridges are scattered like stars, shrouded in immortal mist all year round, making it an excellent place for cultivation. Here, there are 3 sects, 6 sects, 16 sects, 70.2 caves, and countless cultivation sects that are not well known. In this holy land of cultivation, there is a peak that pierces straight into the sky, without a peak visible above and covered by a sea of clouds below. It is like a towering giant surrounded by peaks, standing tall among chickens, and is called Qingtian Peak. Standing at the head of the boat, more than 10 miles apart, Lu Qing gazed at Qingtian Peak from afar. His emotions were complex, including the timidity of a wanderer who had returned from his hometown for many years, the helplessness when Qingtian Peak collapsed, and the grief and anger of countless fellow teachers who fell. When his emotions reached their peak, Lu Qing couldn't help but punch the fence of the flying boat, making a loud bang. Lu Qing's actions immediately caught the attention of the disciples of Qingtian's sect. But everyone just glanced and then moved their gaze away. The feeling that Lu Qing gave them along the way was just a word of dirt, especially after entering Songming Mountain. They always had inexplicable emotional excitement, so they had long been accustomed to it, only thinking that Lu Qing had never seen the world before. But they didn't know that in 500 years, this place would become a scorched earth, and the holy land of cultivation would also become a dead end. That's Qingtian Peak, which is also where our Qingtian Gate is located. What do you think? Yu Xinrui walked slowly forward and looked at Qingtian Peak shoulder to shoulder with Lu Qing. Brave. Yu Xinrui was obviously satisfied with Lu Qing's evaluation, and said with a smile in her eyes, "It is indeed magnificent. Do you think it doesn't look like a giant, supporting the sky for the people here?" Back then, my patriarch Chengshenman was inspired by this and made a vow to protect the people. He established a sect here. Yu Xinrui spoke with great pride, but the grandeur in Lu Qing's mouth was not just about evaluating the appearance of Qingtian Peak. When he said the word grandeur, what came to mind was the heroic spirit of the Qingtian Gate fighting tirelessly. As he spoke, the flying boat had already arrived at the mountain gate of Qingtian Gate. Descending the flying boat, everyone jumped down from it, with a relaxed and joyful look on their faces as they returned home. However, Lu Qing walked slowly to the towering mountain gate and reached out to touch it in a daze. The jade-carved mountain gate was cold, but Lu Qing's heart was hot and warm. "Who asked you to reach out and touch? Take away your dirty hands." The gatekeeper scolded fiercely. The mountain gate is the facade and dignity of a sect, while Lu Qing is just an ordinary person who has just been selected and has not officially joined the Qingtian Gate. Naturally, they consider it a stain on the mountain gate. Lu Qing didn't take his hand away, just glanced at the gatekeeper. In his past life, Lu Qing slaughtered countless demons and had a boundless killing intent on his body. At this moment, he coldly released a hint of coolness that only made the gatekeeper feel a chill from the soles of his feet rushing straight to his head. He immediately shook his hind legs and said, "What do you want to do?" Yu Xinrui, who was about to say something, swallowed the words that were on her lips when she saw this. How come the heavenly gate, the heavenly order, protects the people, and now even the mountain gate cannot be reached? The gatekeeper disciple remained calm and said, "It is true that I am blessed by the heavenly gate, but it is also the land of the immortal family. How can you let the mountain gate be imbued with the aura of vulgarity?" Lu Qing had long known that there were also scumbags in Qingtian Gate, but he didn't want to encounter one as soon as he arrived at Qingtian Gate. The killing intent in his eyes became even more severe. Such a person who cultivates immortals only knows how to do it for himself, and there is no mortal life in his heart. However, before he could do anything, Yushinrui had already shouted loudly, "Be reckless." The gatekeeper disciple clearly knew Yushinrui, and was immediately frightened by the drink. "Yu Xianzi, I don't know where I went wrong with senior sister Yu," he said upon hearing this question. Yushinrui's eyes, which gave off a feeling of spring breeze, immediately turned stern. "Leaving someone like you at Qingtian Gate will only tarnish my reputation," she said as the words fell. A wave of pressure was released from Yushinrui's body. Oppression. Only by condensing the golden elixir and stepping into the Great Way can it be produced. It is not apparent that Yushinrui, at a young age, is already a golden elixir cultivator who has set foot on the Great Way. Yushinrui, who looked gentle like a spring breeze, was truly extraordinary when she got angry. She truly responded to that sentence, calm like a virgin, and moving like thunder. For this disciple who openly violated the rules of the sect, Yushinrui showed no mercy. Under pressure, the disciple immediately lay on the ground, bleeding from his 7 holes, and his spiritual charm belonging to the cultivator was completely destroyed. Surprisingly, his cultivation had been abolished. "What kind of anger is this, sister? Even from a long distance, I can be startled by you." But at this very moment, a charming and pleasant voice sounded, and a group of people walked towards us. The leader is a woman, dressed in a beautiful bun and a black skirt, with a seductive figure. As she walks, her willow waist sways lightly, like a snake dancing. This woman is also a rare beauty, but her skin is as smooth as cream, with a melon seed face, willow eyebrows on her temples, peach blossom in her eyes, and the most beautiful thing is a vermilion beauty mole under the corner of her eye. Her thin lips lightly pursed and smiled, exuding a heart-stirring charm in every move, truly a fox spirit living in the world. Seeing the woman approaching, the disciples of Qingtian's sect around Yushinrui avoided her one after another, showing extreme fear towards her. "My little brother is so handsome," the woman came to Lu Qing and teased her. At this moment, when Lu Qing saw the person in front of him, there was no appreciation for the beauty in his eyes, only a piercing chill. He will never forget this woman in his lifetime, because it was she who caused the death of Yushinrui and their unborn child in a previous life. "The dead fairy took away your dirty hands," Lu Qing said coldly, holding back his murderous intent. As soon as these words were spoken, the whole room fell silent. The woman in black was noticeably stunned, while the disciples of Qingtian's sect around her had long mouths enough to put down a fist. "Did they hear you right?" Surprisingly, Lu Qing was not captivated and even cursed this woman as a dead fairy. This is the Tianjiao of the Qingtian sect, and one of them is extremely difficult to provoke. Is he not afraid of death, or is his composure extraordinary? Pushi Yushinrui couldn't help but burst the silence in the room with a light smile. The disciple of Qingtian's sect behind the woman in black immediately threatened to attack Lu Qing, saying, "You want to die." The woman in black looked at Lu Qing with a smile, then approached Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to stop the person who was about to approach. She looked at Yushinrui with a smirk, "Forget it, I won't take away someone's love." "Shang Lishue, don't talk nonsense. Lu Qing is the disciple I recruited from the mountain this time." Yushinrui, who was not good at playing tricks, was almost defeated by the other party's words. "Oh." Shang Lishue seemed to have realized it. "Since he is the disciple you summoned, why don't we make a bet?" "I'm not in the mood to bet with you." "Aren't you planning to take Yanyu Peak?" Shang Lishue smiled in her eyes and leaned over to Yushinrui's ear, exhaling like an orchid. Upon hearing the 3 words, Yanyu Peak, Yushinrui was moved. After a moment of reflection, he agreed, "I'll bet with you." "What's the betting method?" "Simply put, since we were all ordered to go out and recruit disciples this time, let's compare who has more qualifications to recruit disciples." Yu Xinrui's face hesitated upon hearing the words. After looking at it, Shang Lishua sneered, "You only have one newly recruited disciple in your profession. Aren't you afraid, sister?" Yu Xinrui's bright eyes turned to Lu Qing. Lu Qing knew her intentions, and her hesitation was not because she was afraid, but because she was kind and didn't want to gamble with others. "I agree," Lu Qing said lightly. Lu Qing was able to agree, not only because he didn't want Yu Xinrui to be bullied by Shanglikshu, but more importantly, he knew the significance of Yanyu Peak to Xinrui, and he wanted to use Yanyu Peak as a starting point to enhance the strength of Qingtian Gate in the future. Shanglikshu didn't mean Xinrui was talking. She laughed and said, "Okay, that's settled." The proud Shanglikshu did not see it. Since she proposed the way of gambling, the disciples of Qingtian's sect who accompanied Yu Xinrui looked at her with sympathetic eyes. Chapter 5. Introduction Encyclopedia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Entering Qingtian Gate is a huge mountain gate square, with wooden corridors on both sides for people to walk and rest, attached to the cliffs and broken walls. At this moment, there were already many people standing or sitting on the long corridor, just like the team led by Yu Xinrui, who were returning from outside to recruit disciples. Many of them were ordinary people like Lu Qing, who had not yet formally joined the Qingtian Gate and had cultivation qualifications. Yu Xinrui led the team up the corridor and found a place to sit down. During this time, many disciples of the Qingtian sect came to talk to Yu Xinrui, which shows her popularity. However, she is not. Who wouldn't like a woman with a gentle personality, extraordinary cultivation talent, and unparalleled appearance? Watching Yu Xinrui politely converse with others, Lu Qing couldn't help but recall the days in his past life when he and Yu Xinrui depended on each other in a small bamboo forest building, watching the clouds rolling and relaxing outside the window, sipping tea and chatting with each other. How unforgettable it was. During the waiting time, another team returned to the mountain gate. Suddenly, a crane cry came, and everyone fell silent. Upon closer inspection, they saw several escape lights flying towards them. When they arrived at the main hall of the square, the escape lights stopped and 8 people appeared. The leader was a crane-haired child, dressed in a long robe, holding a broomstick in his hand, and stepping on a crane under his feet. It was from the mouth of the crane that the crane cry came. And behind him, there were both men and women, each with a decent temperament, indicating a decent cultivation. I have met the leader and all the real people. The so-called true person is a term used to refer to cultivators in the realm of the primordial baby, including the true lord of transforming spirits, the primordial lord of exorcism, the heavenly master of unity, and the Mahayana venerable. The elderly man with crane hair and childlike appearance, led by him, raised his hand and gestured for everyone to wave the salute. I am the head of Qingtian Gate and the true person of Wuxia. Today, I, along with 7 peak masters, am hosting the 1-in-a century introductory ceremony of Qingtian Gate. Don't think that coming to our Qingtian Gate means you have already entered it. There are still 2 levels here, one is to inquire about the heart, and the other is to test the spiritual root qualification. Those who can pass both levels can be selected by the leaders of each peak and officially become disciples of our Qingtian Gate. After listening to Immortal Wuxiao's words, a group of ordinary people who were brought to Qingtian Gate began to whisper, saying that the reason they were brought here was because they had spiritual roots. Why bother with this? Yu Xinrui saw that almost all the ordinary people who had just arrived at Qingtian Gate were either discussing or inquiring about the reasons behind the disciples of Qingtian Gate beside her, except for Lu Qing, who had a steady appearance sitting on the fishing platform, and couldn't help but look up at this young man from a rural family in the mountains. Lu Qing naturally wouldn't care about such a problem, and he also knew the reason behind it. At the 1-in-a century introductory ceremony of the Qingtian Gate, there were more than 1 instances where unqualified people were brought into the ceremony due to profit, causing the Qingtian Gate to lose face. It is natural to be cautious when such incidents occur. What he is worried about is the second level of questioning, which is about the deep-rooted fear and desire in a person's heart, in order to eliminate those who have had inner demons from the beginning. You should know that once practiced, a heart demon will emerge. This is a test of the heavenly way for cultivators and a punishment for them to seize the foundation of heaven and earth. As their cultivation level increases, the heart demon will become even more severe. It can be imagined that if a person has the shadow of a heart demon before starting cultivation, then what will happen in the subsequent cultivation? I'm afraid it will be much more difficult than others. And what Lu Qing is worried about is his own heart demon. In his previous life, his heart demon has become an obstacle to his ascent. This time, if the heart demon appears, can he handle it? Just as Lu Qing was anxious about how to get through the challenge of asking for his heart, he saw the Jade Sky Immortal brush the dust in his hand and a white light slowly fall into the square, transforming into an ancient bronze mirror. Upon closer inspection, he could see that what appeared to be patterns on the edge of the mirror was actually an ancient font, which was exactly the 3 characters of the asking for heart mirror. Below, each team leader leads your respective disciples to enter and ask for their hearts. There was already the person who couldn't wait. As soon as Yu Xiaozhenren finished speaking, he entered the arena with his recruited disciples. Note that these leaders who come down the mountain to recruit disciples not only gain experience through this journey, but more importantly, Qingtian Gate will provide corresponding generous rewards based on the quality and quantity of disciples they recruit. Therefore, at this moment, they are eager to know the result. Lin Tao, a disciple of Shinju Peak, came with 3 recruited disciples to inquire. Alright, let's start asking questions. With the approval of Immortal Yuxiao, Lin Tao nodded to the 3 people behind him and said, "You 3 can stand in front of the heart questioning mirror one by one." The process of asking questions is very simple and fast. In just 1 cup of tea, the 3 of them finished asking questions. Asking the heart is about the human heart. It is well known how fast the thoughts in the heart are, almost in a blink of an eye, and the existence of the mind demon is also in the blink of an eye. The result was very bad. The 3 of them asked for their hearts, but none of them passed through. Under the questioning mirror, the 3 of them were full of ugliness, either due to fear and incontinence, or because of desire and madness. The 3 of them, along with the leader Lin Tao, were all looking disheartened. I heard the immortal Yuxiao say, "Don't be discouraged. Although you can't enter my Qingtian Gate, you won't let us go for nothing. After that, someone will take you to other cultivation sections. You can try to join other mountain gates." The words of Ling Xiao Immortal also reveal a major reason for the strength of the Qingtian Gate. Those who have not passed the heart quest test are not unable to cultivate, but their cultivation is much more difficult than passing the heart quest. The main goal of the Qingtian Gate is to have more than enough. The 3 people who did not pass the test immediately rejoiced at the words and bowed before retreating. Next, many teams conducted tests, and after calculation, there were only a few hundred people who could pass the test. As the first test was about to end, there was a sound of footsteps coming from behind Lu Qing. Before he could see it, a familiar voice had already come over. "Why hasn't my sister entered yet? Are you afraid of losing face? Didn't you also miss the entrance? As for me, good things always come later. I can't let this finale appear too early. If the disciples I recruit perform too well, how should my sister and fellow disciples handle themselves?" Being provoked like this, even though Yu Xinrui had a good temper, she couldn't help but retort, "How did you know that the final one is the disciple you recruited, not me? Is my younger sister so confident?" Shang Lixue said, her eyes not only glancing at Lu Qing a few more times, but she didn't see any difference from him. Apart from not knowing the sky and the earth, Lu Qing was worthless in her eyes. Since that's the case, how about we have a clear understanding now? That's exactly what I meant. Yu Xinrui's vermilion lips lightly lifted and dropped these 4 words, and then, in the midst of his gaze with Shang Lixue, he flew into the field with his recruited disciples. Seeing that Yu Xinrui and Shang Lixue entered at the same time, the eyebrows and eyes of each peak leader led by Yu Xiaozhenren became relaxed, indicating how much they were valued at Qingtian Gate. "Why are you two girls fighting again?" Yu Xiaozhenren said with a smile. "I think it's likely that the girl Lixue started the trouble first," said one of the 7 old women with a smile, showing kindness and kindness. "Master, I don't have any, it's just that when I returned to the sect, I happened to meet Sister Xinrui and made a bet with her." Shang Lixue's coquettish appearance made the leaders of each peak smile knowingly. "All right, regardless of what you're gambling on, since you're on the stage, who will come first?" Yuhua Peak disciple, Shang Lixue, came with 5 recruited disciples to inquire. Shang Lixue took the lead and said in a straight voice, "Then you can come first." Everyone present has already seen the previous process, and there is no need to explain it. The 5 people on the side of Shanglixu began to inquire about it. After a while, the 5 people asked their hearts, and surprisingly, 3 of them succeeded in asking their hearts. What is the concept of the 5 people asking their hearts and the 3 people passing through it? Not to mention the team that started with the heart quest, the entire army was defeated by the 3-person heart quest. After that, hundreds of people who passed the heart quest added up to 2 palms, and Shang Lixue's team accounted for 1/3 of all the people who passed the heart quest. If nothing unexpected happens, the team led by Shanglixu will be the leader among the various teams in this battle. All right, Lixue went down the mountain to recruit disciples. Among the 5 people she recruited, 3 of them were successful in asking questions, which shows that your luck and vision are outstanding. Yu Xiao Immortal exclaimed repeatedly. Receiving such praise from the leader, Shang Lishue's eyebrows were full of pride. She glanced at Yu Xinrui seemingly unintentionally, her eyes full of provocation. "Miss Xinrui, it's your turn." "Don't be outdone by Lixue," said the seemingly amiable old woman, who was also Shanglixu's master. This may sound like encouragement, but anyone with a heart can tell that she is helping Shanglixu suppress Yu Xinrui. At this moment, no one present believed that Yu Xinrui could win over Shanglixu, but she refused to reconcile at this time and instead turned to anger. Not equivalent to Xinrui speaking, Lu Qing, who had been avoiding the gaze of the 8 real people since entering, stepped forward and arched his hand, saying, "Young man, Lu Qing from Funyo Mountain has met 8 real people." The 8 immortals looked at the mortal in front of them with a little care, but seeing that although he was ordinary, he could still remain calm and behave with grace when facing the 8 immortals, they immediately looked up to this young man in their hearts. "If you have anything to say, why don't you say it?" Previously, Miss Yu made a bet with Miss Shang, and the disciples recruited by that side were even more outstanding, so Yen Yu Peak returned to that side. Upon hearing these words, all 8 real people had a strange expression on their faces. Yu Xiaozhenren looked at Shanglixu and asked, "Is there such a thing? If I were to return to the head and master, that's exactly what happened. Sister Xinrui and I have been competing for the Yen Yu Peak for some time now. Instead of distracting ourselves from our cultivation, it's better to take this opportunity to settle the matter." Shang Lishue's words filled Yu Xiaozhenren's eyes with satisfaction. "You have such a grand perspective, and you are truly worthy of my Tianmen Tianjiao. Since that's the case, let me, the 8 of you, be witnesses." As Yu Xiaozhenren fell off guard, he heard Lu Qing say at the right time, as the 2 of them used it as a bet, "I dare to make a request." "Your words also make sense. Tell me what you want." "If you can become a disciple of Qingtian's sect and use one person's strength to defeat the other 3, it's okay for our sect leader to give you some benefits." Everyone present thought that Lu Qing was taking advantage of the opportunity to seek some benefits for himself. Some thought he was very bold, and even a mere ordinary person dared to act recklessly in front of 8 real people. Others felt that he didn't know the superiority of heaven and earth, and wanted to use one person to suppress 3 people. Some also thought that he knew how to seize the opportunity and fight for his own interests. But Lu Qing said, "Although I have not known Miss Yu for a long time, I also know that she is a kind and gentle woman who is not good at fighting and disdains to fight with others. However, since I stepped on the Qingtian gate, Miss Shang has repeatedly provoked me. Miss Yu and I have shown kindness, and Lu Qing cannot bear to see such a kind and gentle person being repeatedly bullied by others. Therefore, he boldly proposed that if I win, from then on, wherever Miss Shang is, she will retreat. Lu Qing's words caused a complete uproar in the audience. Yu Xinrui's gaze at Lu Qing was initially surprised, but then she was moved. And at this moment, the gaze of Shangli Shui towards Lu Qing was only endless coldness. Everyone knows that Lu Qing's words can be said to have torn apart Shangli Shui's face. Zhaozhuyuan.com Lu Qing's words can be said to have pierced through a layer of window paper. If everyone hadn't noticed Shangli Shui's hypocritical face before saying these words, her harshness and cruel behavior of bullying her fellow disciples would have been completely exposed. The master of Shangli Shui, the old woman, spoke at this moment with a friendly expression on her face. Lu Qing, you haven't even started yet and you don't know anything about it. The two of them seem to be fighting, but in fact, they have a deep affection for each other. Your verbal bullying is just a way for them to motivate each other. This is obviously trying to save face for Shenglikshu, but anyone with a heart would not believe what Lu Qing said at this moment. Alright, don't delay today's introductory ceremony. Lu Qing, go ask for your understanding. Our sect leader has agreed to your conditions on behalf of Shangli Shui. Yu Xiaozhenren's tone sounded very unhappy. This is not aimed at Lu Qing. He is the proud Yuanying immortal and the leader of the largest sect in the southern heaven. If it weren't for the words of the young man in front of him today, he would still be covered in the snow of Shangli. It's not surprising that he was deceived by Shangli Shui. It's true that Shangli Shui has a great grasp of people's hearts, which has always made people think that her struggle with Yu Xinrui is just a comparison between the two of them. Now, looking back at the various struggles between the two before, as Lu Qing said, Shangli Shui bullied Xin Rui very much. Xia Zhenren completed it. Lu Qing bowed and clasped his fists, then turned around and strode towards the heart-questioning mirror, completely ignoring the murderous gaze of Shangli Shui behind him, as well as the icy coldness in the eyes of the Yuaning old woman. Standing in front of the heart-questioning mirror, Lu Qing took a deep breath as he looked at the blurry mirror that couldn't see the human figure clearly. He was ready to welcome the demon. Come on, no matter how fierce you come in this life, I will erase you. Chapter 6. Heart Demons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After standing in front of the heart-questioning mirror for a moment, the originally blurry heart-questioning mirror began to change in Lu Qing's eyes. On top of it, there seemed to be a layer of mist, as if it had been blown away by a gust of wind. Instead, there was a crystal-like transparency, and Lu Qing, who was reflected in the mirror, was nowhere to hide. At the same time, Lu Qing's mind was instantly pulled apart, and the scene changed in an instant. It is still the Qingtian Gate, but the Qingtian Gate that Lu Qing has seen and heard of now is completely different from the previous moment. At this moment, he stands in a tattered green robe, standing in the air. Above his head, the dark sky is low due to the invasion of magic, as if it will be overwhelmed at any time. Everywhere there were cries of killing, screams of agony, and the joyful laughter of extraterrestrial demons immersed in the slaughter. All of this is so familiar, yet so heart-wrenching. Suddenly, a huge roar echoed through the sky, and then the towering Qingtian peak broke through its waist, with the upper half of the peak tilting in the midst of unwilling mournful cries. Several escape lights flashed past Lu Qing, heading straight towards the toppling Qingtian peak, and then collided with it. The toppling momentum of Qingtian peak was immediately stopped. Qingtian peak is not just a heavy load, pressing on a few people, only causing their veins to sprout and their eyes to bleed. Lu Qing, hurry up and help the ancestors. Qingtian peak cannot collapse. We are here to support it. It was the sect leader Ling Xiaozhenren who made this shout. He was one of the few people who supported Qingtian Peak, but at that time he should not have been called a Zhenren because his realm had reached the stage of leaving the body. Upon hearing this shout and seeing this scene, Lu Qing's eyes instantly became frightened. Don't. And in the next moment, a magic light broke through the sky sealed by the magic energy and suddenly fell, targeting several people from Wuxia Immortal and swallowing them all. Just two old guys in the later stage of the fusion want to stop me. It's wishful thinking. As the word sounded, a burly man with a body wrapped around a demon dragon slowly drifted down from the broken sky. Surprisingly, there is still a fusion. The giant man turned his head in surprise and looked at Lu Qing, his arrogant and contemptuous aura indicating that this world had become his background. Mad Dragon Demon Lord. Lu Qing gritted his teeth, even though he had already killed this guy who led his demon army to destroy the Qingtian Gate after he reached the Mahayana period in his previous life. Seeing him again for a while, Lu Qing still felt uneasy. I'm very dissatisfied with your appearance, so go ahead and lead me to death. The Dragon Demon Lord stood with his hands on his back, his black hair flying high. What? Without any hesitation, Lu Qing's hands were imprinted and his body was covered in white light. At the same time, he shouted loudly, his voice echoing through the sky. He yang yang, the sun rises in the east. In the courtyard of Ziwei, the 5 does protect the line. Jiuyao stands on the side, and the stars stand out. The heavenly gang subdues demons, and the earth's evil scenery moves. Tianmen, open. Every time Lu Qing said a word, the world around him was shaken, as if something was about to break through the air, causing immense pressure on the entire world. When his last sentence fell, the space behind Lu Qing shattered with a loud bang, and an arch emitting a majestic and ancient atmosphere appeared behind Lu Qing, which was the heavenly gate. Tianmen, is this your divine ability? Looking at Tianmen in front of him, the Dragon Demon Lord frowned slightly. Lu Qing had no intention of talking nonsense to him, and the secret in his hand changed again. Call. Listen to the 9 Yao Fire Virtue True Lord in front of you. As soon as Lu Qing finished speaking, a raging fire erupted from the heavenly gate and spread out in all directions like a prairie fire. In an instant, the sky, which was originally covered by magic, became a sea of fire. Even the land could not withstand the high temperature, and water quickly flowed away. Vegetation turned into ashes, and the once vibrant cultivation paradise was now reincarnated and barren. Hua de Zhenjun, you must be ordered. A loud roar came from the door that day, and soon a fiery dragon spiraled out with its teeth and claws, circling around the pillar to protect Lu Qing. The dragon's eyes spewed out a long flame, staring fixedly at the fierce Dragon Demon Lord ahead. You have some abilities compared to others when facing demons with gods, praised the Dragon Demon Lord, but the arrogance and disdain in his eyes remained unchanged. The mad Dragon Demon Lord waved his palm towards the sky and said, I am the demon from outside the domain, the mad Dragon Demon Lord, summon, the 8 devil dragons, come near me. As the words of the Dragon Demon Lord fell, a black vortex suddenly appeared in the sky above, with a wild and violent dragon chant. Then, 8 ferocious black dragon heads emerged from that vortex. The appearance of the 8 devil dragons is like the end of the world. As the world trembles amidst their sound and dragon chants, boundless demonic energy emanates from their bodies, covering the sky and sun, and covering the fields. At this moment, the world changed and the demon realm outside the domain descended. And in the battle, the extraterrestrial demons saw the appearance of the 8 demon dragons, each with a frightened expression. The 8 devil dragons are the most ferocious creatures in the demon realm outside the domain. It is rumored that they guard all directions of the demon realm and have a fierce nature, swallowing everything between heaven and earth. Such a ferocious creature can be driven by the mad Dragon Demon Lord, which shows the terrifying nature of the mad Dragon Demon Lord. Upon seeing the appearance of this heinous creature, it was the bloodthirsty demons who without hesitation abandoned their opponents in an attempt to escape from this dangerous place. But their escape was ultimately in vain. In the direction of the 8 demon dragons, there was a great power of magic. They opened their dragon mouths and suddenly sucked in countless human demons. Seeing countless members of the Xianxia sect being devoured by the 8 devil dragons, Lu Qing's eyes were torn apart and he shouted loudly before killing them. The place where Lu Qing walked was ablaze with flames, and the world was instantly divided in half, with half being the sea of fire and the other half being the demon realm. The 8 devil dragons turned their heads when they saw someone daring to attack them. 8 pairs of ruthless and cold eyes stared at Lu Qing, emitting a earth-shattering dragon chant, and then the 8 dragons emerged to attack Lu Qing. At this moment, the scene of heaven and earth can be said to be shocking. 8 demon dragons, resembling huge mountains, hold the black world behind them like a demon realm, and on the other side, Lu Qing supports the sky with his hand, and the flame world follows him like a shadow. In the moment when Lu Qing collided with the 8 demon dragons, the 2 worlds of one black and one red collided with a loud bang. Then there was a crazy battle between flames and demonic energy, entangled, torn, until finally, with a loud explosion, terrifying energy was released, tearing apart the sky and the earth. After a moment, the terrifying energy was completely released, and Lu Qing lay covered in blood on the already flattened broken earth, staring straight at the sky. Still the same result, like in the previous life, he was still unable to save the Qingtian gate. Although he knew that everything he had experienced now was not true, it did not prevent it from happening in the past. In this endless sense of unwillingness and regret, the scene in front of Lu Qing changed once again. This time he felt someone lying in his arms, looking down at him and his whole body trembling violently. Lying in his arms was Yuxinrui. At this moment, her body was already cold and there was a blood hole in her chest. However, after looking down to see this scene with a brief moment of emotional loss, Lu Qing miraculously calmed down. Yes, at this moment, he was very calm, like a deep pool, emitting a palpitating aura in the calm. Fu Shen tightly embraced Yuxinrui's icy corpse in her arms, burying his head in her icy neck, and remained motionless and silent. I don't know how long it took, but everything dissipated. The scene that reappeared was the parents being killed by the Reincarnation Demon Lord. However, Lu Qing remained unmoved, as if all of this had nothing to do with him. You should get out of my heart, Lu Qing said coldly, suddenly calm. When he said these words, he raised his head and looked straight at the Reincarnation Demon Lord, speaking calmly, that's right, these are things I don't want to face anymore. If they were placed in my past life, I wouldn't be able to bear them. But many things have not happened in this life yet, they require me to change, and now how can I be defeated by you again? If that's the case, I, Lu Qingkai, really deserve to die. I will do my best to change everything, live well, and live until the day when all evil spirits are eradicated. Only in this way can I live up to my parents and this life. As soon as Lu Qing finished his last sentence, everything in front of him at zhaozhuiyuan.com dissipated once again, and the demon in his heart disappeared without a trace. But to the outside world, it's already because Lu Qing has already exploded. At the moment when he asked his heart, a towering demonic energy burst out from within his body. Seeing this demonic aura, everyone instantly thought he was an extraterrestrial demon. If it weren't for the obstruction of Wuxia Immortal, someone would have taken action to kill him. It's really unbelievable that this son has such a heavy demon in his heart. If he were to step onto the path of immortality, it would only be a matter of time before he becomes possessed. This was the exclamation made by Immortal Wuxia after stopping the person who was about to take action. This statement can also be considered as cutting off Lu Qing's path to cultivation. After this, not only did he join the Qingtian sect, but he also wanted to go to other cultivation sects, and the Qingtian sect would not give him a chance. Watching Lu Qing's demonic aura soar into the sky, Yuxinrui did not feel the slightest anger of losing her gambling contract. She completely ignored Shang Lishue's teasing gaze. At this moment, she felt a little intolerant towards Lu Qing, as such a rare heavenly spiritual root would be destined to miss the path of immortality. I don't know how painful it would be for him to know that he no longer has the opportunity to avenge his parents. Is this? However, what happened the next moment also made Xiaoxinren exclaim in surprise. But seeing the towering demonic aura on Lu Qing's body, it dissipated completely in an instant. The other real people also spoke in disbelief. How could this be possible? Even if we encountered such a heavy demon, it would be difficult for us to get through it. How could an ordinary person possibly get through it? This is impossible. But what if they don't believe it? After all, things happen right in front of their eyes. Lu Qing slowly opened his eyes and looked at the vibrant Qingtian gate in front of him with a smile. When he looked at Yuxinrui's shocked eyes again, he smiled and said, "Fortunately, you won't lose your life." Chapter 7. Gambling Contract. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Suddenly, a figure flashed towards Lu Qing and grabbed her shoulder, excitedly questioning, "Tell me, how did you do it?" The person who came was a slender and short old man who was unkempt and full of alcohol. Seeing this old man, the 8 Yuanying immortals led by Wuxia were all shocked in their eyes. When Lu Qing saw this person, he almost blurted out the word, "Master." That's right. The person who came here was the master of Lu Qing in his past life, and the world called him a crazy Taoist. Without him, Kenpur, Lu Qing replied, feeling excited in his heart, "Kenpur, Kenpur." The mad Taoist murmured, and in the end, his expression was as if crying or laughing, which really matched his title as the mad Taoist. Is it just a survey? The road is as simple as it is. What a road is as simple as it is. The crazy Taoist sighed up to the sky, and after speaking, his figure gradually dissipated, but he had already left. Pretending to be a god and playing tricks, no one knows that if you want to break the heart demon, you just need to explore it, murmured the disciple of Qingtian's sect present. I didn't expect you to have such insight at a young age before stepping onto the path of immortality. With just one sentence of Kenpur, you can dispel the inner demons that have troubled Master Uncle for nearly 1,000 years, and also give us some gains. Yu Xiaoxinren's statement is true. Although it is well known that one only needs to explore and break the heart demon, how many people actually go to explore and break it when facing it? Heart demons are like a flood, and those who are surrounded by them are like a solitary leaf amidst these waves and currents. They are swept away by the heart demons and deeply trapped in them, unable to extricate themselves. How could they stand from the perspective of an observer to explore it? Lu Qing did not take the praise of Yu Xiaoxinren to heart, but bowed in response to him. He is extremely happy in his heart now, because he has accomplished the first thing he needs to do since his reincarnation. In his past life, his master was hindered by a demon in his heart, and his cultivation was hindered for thousands of years. Before he could achieve success in his cultivation, his master had already been released from the army and returned to heaven. I am in charge. Although Lu Qing had a demon in his heart, it was discovered by him and he passed this level. Everyone had no objection to this. As cultivators, they all knew very well that Lu Qing had a heart demon, which was much stronger than those who had not produced a heart demon before asking about his state of mind. His ability to defeat the inner demons this time demonstrates his firm willpower and extraordinary understanding. Moreover, the inner demons he has discovered are feared by even Yuanying immortal. If he no longer encounters stronger inner demons in his future cultivation, it will be a smooth journey. Anyone who has passed the heart-to-heart test below should come closer. Everyone knows that this is about to test their spirits, and they are anxiously waiting for the result. Everyone knows that this level will determine who is the most outstanding person in the introductory ceremony of the Qingtian Gate. Because the bet between Xianxia and Xianxia was ahead, everyone naturally turned more attention to Lu Qing and the 3 disciples led up the mountain by Xianxia. At this introductory ceremony, a total of 12 people, including Lu Qing, stood in front of the Jade Sky Immortal in a row through a heart-to-heart inquiry. The gaze of immortal Wuxia swept over the 12 faces. After this, if all of you have spiritual roots, you will be disciples of our Qingtian sect. You need to remember one thing, which is our Qingtian sect's rules and the purpose of our Qingtian sect's establishment. Qingtian's mandate is to protect the people. If anyone violates this sect rule in the future, they will be punished severely, we will remember. Immortal Wuxia nodded, and 12 spiritual lights flew out of his hands one by one. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, when it was Lu Qing's turn, his movements paused for a moment, causing his spiritual roots to appear later than others. Watching the light of spiritual roots appearing on each person's heads in sequence, Wuxia Immortal and the leaders of the peaks behind him nodded repeatedly. For earthly spiritual roots, 7 human spiritual roots, not bad, not bad. 2 of the earth spirit roots in the population of Wuxiaozhenren were brought up by Shangli Shui, which made Wuxiaozhenren's gaze at her, who had previously been slightly dissatisfied with Shangli Shui, soften again. It seems that this time, senior sister will definitely lose. There are 2 earthly spiritual roots, unless that Lu Qing is a heavenly spiritual root, said the worried disciple of Qingtian sect, who leaned towards the heart. But just as the words fell, everyone thought that Yuxinrui had lost. The dazzling white light on Lu Qing's head froze everyone's expressions on their faces. As Yuxinrui watched this scene, a faint smile appeared on her lips. Shang Lixue, who had come to her senses from surprise, turned her head to look at Yuxinrui. When she saw Yuxinrui, she was instantly stabbed by that faint smile. At this point, she was not clear about anything. From the beginning, Yuxinrui knew the outcome, while she was seen and laughed at like a clown. When she withdrew her gaze from Yuxinrui and looked at Lu Qing again, Shang Lixue's eyes were filled with resentment. Since she was born, everything has gone smoothly. She is naturally beautiful and exceptionally beautiful. She has a fiery spiritual root and extraordinary talent. She is good at grasping people's hearts and her words and actions are always favorable. Even Yuxinrui, who was also known as the unparalleled double pride of Chengshenmen, could only suffer repeated humiliations and losses in front of her. But today, she was defeated, completely defeated. She was torn apart and shameful in public, not to mention, but also lost to Yuxinrui, who had been suppressed by her and couldn't lift her head. And all of this is because of one person, Lu Qing. Shangli Shui had an unprecedented desire to kill someone. Lu Qing, you must die. The strong anger in her heart had made Shanglixu unable to hear the outside world's voices. It wasn't until Wuxiaozhenren announced that Yuxinrui had won the bet and would become the lord of Yanyu Peak that she suddenly woke up. She even surpassed me to become the master of a peak. Shangli gritted her teeth with hatred, but now she has no choice but to be angry. Next is the selection of disciples by the 8 great peaks. When it was Lu Qing's turn, the 8 great peaks, including immortal Wuxia, turned their gaze to him. But it's not the case either. Who wouldn't want to accept such a disciple who has not yet cultivated and can detect the inner demons, and possesses heavenly spiritual roots? However, before the other peak masters could speak, immortal Wuxia had already said, Lu Qing, are you willing to personally pass on disciples to my sect? In a commotion on the field, the meaning of the personal transmission by the leader means that Lu Qing will have the qualification to compete for the leader in the future. Everyone has only envy for this, but no one thinks that Lu Qing is unworthy. But Lu Qing's next words made everyone unable to believe their ears. I don't want to enter the doors of all the real people present. As soon as these words were spoken, let alone others, it was Shangli Shui, who had already harbored a deep hatred towards Lu Qing, who had a strange expression on her face. If Lu Qing's arrogance is just without capital, such arrogance is ignorance. Just like when she was scolded by Lu Qing as a dead fairy in front of the mountain gate, she was too lazy to take a glance at such people, let alone be angry. But now, Lu Qing is a true genius, destined to be arrogant in the future. Such a person's arrogance makes people feel that it will only be a domineering display of the vastness of heaven and earth. This person must not be allowed to exist for a long time, otherwise they will become my strong enemy in the future. Sure enough, Immortal Wuxia and others did not show any signs of annoyance upon hearing this, but smiled and said, anyway, there are 361 peaks in Qingtian Gate. You can choose your own peak from now on. I don't think that summit has rejected you. The disciples have already been selected. Oh. You just joined Qingtian Gate, and you're not familiar with each peak yet. Why did you choose it? Didn't you already have a connection with Qingtian Gate before that? Yu Xiaozhenren's guess is true, Lu Qing indeed has a deep connection with the Qingtian Gate. It's not like that, the disciple just wants to repay the kindness. Repaying kindness. How do you say this? I dare not hide it from the leader. Previously, because my disciple was a heavenly spiritual root, the whole village was slaughtered by demons from outside the region. If it weren't for Miss Yu's help, the disciple might have already entered the underworld. This time, Miss Yu has just become the leader of a peak, so I am willing to take the initiative to join Yanyu Peak and contribute my humble efforts. When everyone first heard that Lu Qing was going to join Yanyu Peak, they all thought that Lu Qing might have a problem with his brain. However, after hearing him explain the reason, they all admired him again. Who wouldn't want better cultivation conditions on the path of cultivation, but this Lu Qing actually gave up a smooth path in order to repay kindness. He is truly a role model for us. This. After listening to Lu Qing's words, Yu Xiaozhenren also greatly praised his character, making it difficult to make a decision for a moment. The reason why Lu Qing chose other peaks was because each peak had experts sitting there, who could guide him in his cultivation. But Yanyu Peak, now Yu Xinrui is alone. Who can teach him, Yu Xinrui of the Golden Elixir period? Although teaching a new disciple during the Golden Elixir period is sufficient, Lu Qing is different. Such a genius cannot tolerate any mistakes in cultivation. If we have to reject it all at once, wouldn't we let our leader set a bad example for all our disciples who don't know how to repay their kindness? Without waiting for Immortal Wuxia to make a decision, Yu Xinrui had already stepped forward. I am afraid and dare not take on the responsibility of teaching Lu Qing. Please arrange it separately, Master Immortal. Yu Xinrui saw the difficulties faced by Immortal Wuxia and spoke out to resolve the situation, which immediately caught the appreciative gaze of Immortal Wuxia. Miss Xinrui doesn't want to take you to the peak, what do you say? I have made up my mind. Humph. Do you think that with exceptional qualifications, you can ignore me and all the Yuaning real people? The old woman said that. The other Yuaning immortals present, including Yu Xiao Immortal, understood in their hearts that the old woman's words inevitably carried personal grievances, but even so, they still had dissatisfaction with Lu Qing. The old woman's words were right. Although Lu Qing had great talent, he was ultimately just an ordinary person, and in front of him was the Yuaning Immortal, whom countless people had to look up to. However, he appeared shameless several times, which was truly despicable. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn, and the disciples of Qingtian Gate present couldn't help but feel worried for Lu Qing in their hearts. Zhaozhuyuan.com At this moment, they forgot that if Lu Qing had truly achieved his wish, their goddess in their hearts would likely have been surpassed by someone else. After a while, Immortal Wuxia broke the solemn atmosphere and said, well, 5 months from now, there will be a 5-year external competition. If you can win the top 3 in the competition, let's enter the Yanyu Peak. As soon as Yu Xiaozhenren said this, all the disciples present who had entered the Qingtian Gate before Lu Qing knew the purpose of Yu Xiaozhenren's words. 5 months later, will the external team win the top 3 in the big competition? Are you joking? You should know that all external disciples who participate in the competition have practiced for at least 5 years, and how could Lu Qing want to catch up with others for at least 5 years in just 5 months? Not to mention achieving the top 3. Even if he is a heavenly spiritual root, he is still delusional. Yu Xiaozhenren is clearly deceiving Lu Qing without knowing the inside story and setting a trap for him. For a moment, all the disciples secretly warned Lu Qing not to agree in their hearts. How could Lu Qing not understand the intentions of Yu Xiaozhenren after hearing this? Is it 5 months? He cannot easily use the sword cultivation technique from the outside world. This is his trump card, and it is also to avoid being coveted by someone with ulterior motives. If someone knows that he is practicing the same sword cultivation technique, they can imagine what kind of trouble they will encounter. Therefore, before it is inevitable, he must try to hide his identity as a sword cultivator as much as possible. In this way, he can only rely on his own cultivation level to achieve the top 3 in the external world within 5 months. Can one catch up with others for at least 5 years in 5 months? Perhaps there is the existence of the Sword Ancestor Tower, and he could give it a try. After having such thoughts, Lu Qing did not hesitate to agree to the proposal of Yu Xiaozhenren. Chapter 8. Dharma Sword Co Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After making an agreement with the leader Yu Xiaozhenren to win the top 3 in the outer sect after 5 months, Lu Qing was allowed to temporarily reside in Yanyu Peak. On the way to Yanyu Peak with Yu Xinrui, neither of them said anything until they stepped onto Yanyu Peak. Suddenly, walking ahead, Yu Xinrui said, "Thank you." Without waiting for Lu Qing to speak, she suddenly turned around and stared at him seriously, asking, "What is the purpose of helping me like this?" Lu Qing was momentarily taken aback by her sudden question, and soon understood. This time he helped Xinrui too much, and it was not something that a first-time acquaintance should do, even with the so-called life-saving kindness. You should know that as a newcomer who has just joined Qingtian Gate, anyone with a little brain will not offend anyone in a strange environment, let alone the person he offended is someone he absolutely cannot afford to provoke, and he offended so thoroughly without hesitation. During the time spent with Lu Qing, he was clearly not a brainless person, so he naturally had his own purpose in doing these things. Lu Qing, who understood what Yu Xinrui was thinking, did not show any panic on her face. Instead, she took a step forward with a smile on her face and gazed into Yu Xinrui's eyes, their eyes facing each other, their breathing audible. Gazing into Yu Xinrui's eyes, Lu Qing said in an unquestionable tone, "Yu Xinrui, remember that one day you will be my Lu Qing's wife, and my Lu Qing woman must not be bullied recklessly." Yu Xinrui was immediately stunned by Lu Qing's bold and straightforward words. What did he say? How could he dare to do so? Yu Xinrui is well aware of how attractive her appearance is, but no one has ever openly told her like Lu Qing that you will be my wife, let alone that he is still just an ordinary person. Of course, Yu Xinrui does not look down upon ordinary people, but rather she is a cultivator of the golden elixir. Those who have not reached her level of cultivation inevitably feel inferior in front of her. Yu Xinrui, who was stunned for a moment, felt a surge of shame and anger in her heart when she realized it. Her face, like a jade, blushed at a speed visible to the naked eye. You're reckless. Yu Xinrui whispered and slapped towards Landing Qing. Faced with this palm, Lu Qing did not dodge or avoid it, still looking at Yu Xinrui with a smile on his face. Seeing that Lu Qing didn't dodge or dodge, Yu Xinrui's palm suddenly stopped less than an inch in front of Lu Qing. For some reason, looking at Lu Qing's gaze, Yu Xinrui felt a palpitations. It seemed that they had known each other a long time ago, so familiar and inseparable. This feeling made her, as a woman, feel a bit ashamed, and she threw down a roll of bamboo slips and fled as if. Watching Yu Xinrui's embarrassed figure leave, Lu Qing couldn't help but chuckle softly. Pick up the bamboo slips on the ground and walk towards a bamboo forest with familiarity. This place is still so familiar, even though it has undergone many changes, the only difference is the absence of a small bamboo forest building. Lu Qing called out his own life-flying sword, which cleared a space between the vertical and horizontal. After another busy afternoon, a bamboo grove building just like the one in memory appeared in front of her. Half lying in front of the door, Lu Qing looked at Yun Wan and Yun Shu beside him and sighed, so there's only one hostess missing. At night, Lu Qing sat cross-legged inside the bamboo house, facing the roll of bamboo slips left by Yu Xinrui. Yu Xinrui only gave him an introductory cultivation method during the qi refining period. Practicing this technique does not affect his future specialization in any other martial arts. It can be seen that Yu Xinrui really did not intend to keep him at Yanyu Peak. Lu Qing sighed and took the bamboo slip into his arms. As soon as his heart moved, it had already disappeared from the scene, and when he reappeared, he had already arrived at the Tower of Sword Ancestor. Of course, Lu Qing wouldn't worry about not having good cultivation techniques. As a great practitioner in his past life, he had collected countless top-notch techniques. If he threw any of them, he would be robbed of his head. And in this lifetime, Lu Qing did not hesitate which kind of cultivation he wanted to pursue. For him, he has always been a member of the Qingtian sect, with life being a member of the Qingtian sect and death being a ghost of the Qingtian sect. Therefore, the cultivation methods he practiced must come from the Qingtian sect. And now there are 3 cultivation methods that Lu Qing can choose from, namely, 9 transformations Xuandi Gong, Food God Qi, and Forest Luo Wanxiang Ju. Jiuzhuan Xuandi Gong is an ultimate body training technique, where the physical body gains powerful strength and defense as the cultivation level increases. When practicing until the Yuanying period, one can move mountains and fill the sea. The energy of the god of food can quickly devour other people's spells and transform them into one's own spiritual power. With successful cultivation, one can even swallow the spiritual power of heaven and earth for personal use. Both of these techniques can be described as extremely powerful. But Lu Qing chose the Forest Luo Wanxiang Ju, and the reason for choosing it is because this cultivation method is extremely compatible with his heavenly spiritual roots. Sen Luo Wanxiang does not have the same limitations as other martial arts. It can only absorb a certain type of heaven and earth spiritual power or multiple specific attribute spiritual powers based on the characteristics of the martial arts. Its characteristic is that it can absorb all attribute spiritual powers, including the ultimate attribute. It can be said that the Sen Luo Wanxiang technique is an extremely suitable cultivation method for the heavenly spirit root. Of course, Lu Qing also thought about practicing the 9 transformations Xuandi Gong and went to the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. However, upon reflection, he was still a sword cultivator. When he reached the sword body realm, he could combine his body with the sword. His body was like a sword, and his sword was like his body. His physical body was also very powerful, and even had variability. After making the choice, Lu Qing was ready to start practicing. At this moment, his heart was nervous and excited, because he could not fully conclude that he could really practice swordsmanship together, which required further cultivation as a verification. Mutually reciting the cultivation technique, Lu Qing began to absorb spiritual power, but soon his eyebrows became a cluster because he realized that the spiritual power around him had no response. What's going on? Can't he practice swordsmanship together? Not right. If it's not possible, it's not because the surrounding spiritual power doesn't react at all, but because there is a conflict between the spiritual power of the Dharma cultivation in the body and the sword element. Upon thinking about this, what came to Lu Qing's mind? Sword Ancestor's Tower, Sword Ancestor's Tower. Is it true that because this is the Sword Ancestor's Tower, he rejects Dharma cultivation? I can't absorb the spiritual power here. Lu Qing thinks this is very likely. With this idea in mind, Lu Qing left the Sword Ancestor's Tower and returned to the bamboo cottage. As expected, he began to react with the spiritual power around him as he once again operated the forest and all things technique. This unable to cultivate Dharma and martial arts within the Tower of Sword Ancestor, what should I do with my external competition in 5 months? After a moment of contemplation, Lu Qing sat up straight and murmured, it seems there's only that left. The method that Lu Qing came up with to quickly improve his strength is something he doesn't want to do at the moment, because it's a bit dangerous for him now. In this life, Lu Qing did not want his life to be in danger unnecessarily, as he said when facing the demon in the questioning mirror. He had the opportunity to change many things in this life. If he died so prematurely, he would feel guilty to many people, including himself. Chapter 9. The Secret Realm of the Mortal World. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, 5 days have passed in a blink of an eye, and Lu Qing's cultivation has now reached the level of refining qi. Early that morning, Lu Qing arrived at the Yanyu building where Yuxinrui was located. This building stood on a mountain, 7 zhang and 6 feet high, simple and elegant, clearly existing for some time. Standing outside the building, Lu Qing didn't approach, just stared. During this trip, Lu Qing was not very sure if he could come back, so before going, he had to come and tell Yuxinrui that what he had said before was not just a fleeting statement. This was a silent communication, and he believed that Yuxinrui was also watching him at this moment, and he guessed correctly. In fact, from the beginning, Yuxinrui did not let him completely leave her vision, except for some private spaces, such as the bamboo forest, which she had assigned to Lu Qing since he entered. Yuxinrui has been paying attention to him with her divine sense. After all, Lu Qing is someone who has already been valued by the sect, so she cannot have any problems in her territory. Have you already found the qi sense and reached the level of refining qi in just 5 days? Upon realizing Lu Qing's cultivation level, Yuxinrui was greatly surprised in her heart. It took her almost a month to find the sense of qi. What is he here for now? Just as Xianxia was speculating about Lu Qing's purpose in coming here, she saw Lu Qing take out a bouquet of camellias from behind, place them on the ground, and then turn around and leave without looking back. Seeing this scene, Yuxinrui was shocked in her heart and thought to herself, this guy won't come every day in the future, will he? Unfortunately, her guess was destined to be wrong, and for a considerable period of time afterwards, she did not see any trace of Lu Qing. At this moment, Lu Qing left the Yanyu building and headed straight towards his destination in his heart. At the destination of this trip, Tianji Peak, Lu Qing jumped off a small flying boat specifically designed for disciples of Qingtian Gate and landed steadily on the ground. This flying boat was rented by Lu Qing at the cost of a pair of nourishing elixirs. There is no free lunch in the world, but Lu Qing does not have the spiritual stones needed to rent a flying boat. In order to prevent Lu Qing from staying at Yanyu Peak, both Wuxia Immortal and Yuxinrui did not provide him with the necessary spiritual stones for cultivation. On the boat, the disciple of Qingtian Gate, who was in charge of operating the boat, couldn't help but mutter to Lu Qing, who was gradually drifting away below, what is this kid doing here at Tianji Peak after refining his qi? Is it difficult? He still wants to. Impossible, impossible, isn't that just seeking death? Lu Qing couldn't hear the murmurs of his boating disciple, and he climbed the mountain all the way to the top of Tianji Peak. The strong mountain wind at the summit blew Lu Qing's black hair flying. On top of this peak stand 3 bronze gates, carved with fierce birds and beasts, lifelike, as if they will come back to life at any moment, making people tremble. Lu Qinggang was walking towards the 3 gates when he was stopped by a middle-aged man. What are you doing here as a disciple of that peak? Disciple, Yanyu Peak, Lu Qing. Yanyu Peak. The middle-aged man had a strange expression on his face and said, do you know where this is? Hurry up and leave. This is not where you, as a person, should come to refine qi. How can you say this, senior? The founder of Qingtian's sect once said that all disciples of Qingtian's sect can enter the secret realm. Why can't I? The middle-aged man was immediately stopped. Indeed, his ancestor had said such things, but later on, people who came here had at least 10 levels of qi cultivation. Gradually, there was an unwritten rule that to enter the secret realm, one must also practice at least 10 levels of qi. However, unwritten rules are ultimately no match for the rules set by our ancestors, and middle-aged people hesitated for a while only to make way. When Lu Qing brushed past him, the middle-aged man spoke again, "Kid, don't blame me for not reminding you. You refine qi layer by layer, and if you go, you're just looking for death. On the path of cultivation, if you don't advance, you will retreat, if you advance, you will live, if you retreat, you will die, and I choose to live towards death." The middle-aged man was shocked by the words, while Lu Qing had already stood in front of the 3 gates. These 3 gates represent 3 secret realms. Mortal heaven, will heaven, and turning heaven. There are generally monsters from the qi refining stage to the foundation building stage in the Fantian secret realm, suitable for cultivators from the 10th level of qi refining and the foundation building stage to enter. In the Luantian secret realm, there are monsters from the golden elixir period to the primordial infant period, suitable for entering the golden elixir period and the primordial infant period. And there are rumors that there are monsters in the transitional period in this magical realm. The reason why it is said to be a rumor is that very few people have the ability to enter it, so naturally there are few rumors about this magical realm. The natural place that Lu Qing is going to enter this time is the mortal secret realm. The purpose of Lu Qing's entry into the secret realm this time is to collect the heavenly and earthly treasures within the realm. In his past life, he was known as the Sanju Venerable. His 3 unique skills respectively refer to cultivation, formation, and alchemy, and the purpose of Lu Qing's trip is to refine alchemy, because this is the only way he can quickly improve his own qi cultivation within 5 months. Stepping out, the door of the Fantian secret realm slowly opened, and then slowly closed again as Lu Qing entered. 12 days passed in a blink of an eye. During these 12 days, Yuxinrui initially had a vague fear of Lu Qing's return, and then developed an expectation that even she was not aware of. After 7 or 8 days, Yuxinrui began to worry. Lu Qing walked for 7 or 8 days without any news. As a disciple of the first level of qi refining who had just entered the Qingtian gate, where could he go? Thinking about how Lu Qing had offended Shangli Shui before, her heart became even more uneasy. Looking at the withered camellia in front of the window, Yuxinrui knew she couldn't wait any longer, so she rose from the sky and left Yanyu Peak. "What are you saying? Lu Qing is missing." In the main hall of the sect leader, Immortal Wuxia sat up in shock after hearing Yuxinrui's words. It's Xinrui's fault for not taking good care of him. Seeing Xinrui's expression of bowing her head and admitting her mistake, Yu Xiaozhenren couldn't express the blame on her lips, so she had to summon her disciples to send someone to find Lu Qing. The power of a sect leader is enormous, and within less than an hour, news about Lu Qing came back. "Master, the person sent to search has received news. He learned from a boating disciple that 12 days ago, a disciple of the first level of qi refining went to Tianji Peak. 12 days ago. Refining a layer of gas. Tianji Peak." Yu Xiaozhenren and Yuxinrui were both shocked at the same time. How could he go to Tianji Peak? Is it too bold to say that he wants to improve his own strength through the secret realm? He is just refining qi, right? As a disciple who has just entered the Qingtian gate, how could he know about Tianji Peak? Did you tell him, Xinrui? I don't have any disciples. I misunderstood you, Yu Xiaozhenren sighed as he calmed down. Upon closer reflection, he knew it was impossible unless Yuxinrui wanted to harm Lu Qing. However, with Yuxinrui's personality and Lu Qing's previous help, how could she harm Lu Qing? Well, let's not worry about how he knows the secret realm for now. The top priority is to go to Tianji Peak and have a look first. Tianji Peak, junior brother Yan, Yu Xiaozhenren shouted loudly as soon as he arrived at Tianji Peak. As soon as his words fell, the middle-aged man appeared on the spot. Senior brother, why did you come here? Let me ask you, 12 days ago, did a disciple with the first level of qi refining enter the secret realm? Seeing Yu Xiaozhenren's anxious appearance, the middle-aged man immediately replied, there is such a person who has entered the mortal secret realm. It's not surprising that he answered so quickly. Although there are many disciples entering the secret realm every day, Lu Qing left a deep impression on him. Oh my, why don't you stop him? Seeing Yu Xiaozhenren's intention of blaming him, the middle-aged man's face changed and he increased his voice. He suppressed me with the words of his ancestor. What can I do? Not to mention the middle-aged man who was stunned when he heard the words of his ancestor at that time. Even the immortal Yu Xiao was stunned when he thought of the words of his ancestor. I secretly thought to myself, how could this guy still know the words of his ancestor? Forget it, I'll go bring that kid back. Senior brother, what are you doing? The middle-aged man dodged and stopped Yu Xiaozhenren, who was about to enter the secret realm. Junior brother, I know there is a violation of rules, but you don't know anything about it. That kid is a heavenly spirit root, and even worse, before he practiced, he gave birth to a heart demon that even I wanted to fear before asking about his state of mind. But that kid actually discovered the heart demon. How can I make such a person worse? The middle-aged man was shocked. He never expected that the boy he had put into the secret realm at the time would be such a genius. To put it bluntly, if this person didn't die young, it would be the hope of the sect. But at the thought of destroying a sect's hope with one's own hands, a strong sense of guilt surged in the middle-aged heart. But the next moment when the 4 words that Lu Qing had said came to mind, the wavering in his heart became firm. Senior brother, do you know what he said to me that day? No matter what you say, please make way for me. The middle-aged man continued, regardless of the obvious anger that Yu Xiaozhenren had already shown. He told me that those who practice will live if they enter, and those who retreat will die if they go to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. And he chose to live towards death. This is his way, and it should also be the way of us who practice against the heavens, so I cannot let you enter. Upon hearing these words, Yu Xinrui's heart was shaken. She remembered the scene of rescuing Lu Qing in Funyo village, which was so tragic. People ate and died like wild beasts, and Lu Qing, who had witnessed that scene with her own eyes, felt what kind of feeling it was. The hatred and anger in his heart should be even deeper than he imagined. No wonder he would have such a heavy heart demon in front of the questioning mirror. With such hatred in his heart, his desire for revenge can be imagined, and no wonder he would use such extreme methods to enhance his strength. Master, let's just fulfill him. Yu Xinrui's sudden words stunned Yu Xiao, who was still arguing with the middle-aged man. Master, would you like to hear how I met him? So at the peak of that day, Yu Xinrui truthfully told Yu Xiaozhenren and middle-aged people about the tragic situation in Funyo village, and also mentioned that the sword cultivator had killed Lu Qing together in order to eliminate demons. After listening to Yu Xinrui's story, immortal Yu Xiao took a deep breath and sighed. The demon outside the domain is really despicable. No wonder he had such a heavy demon at that time, and could still escape from it. It can be seen that what gave birth to the demon was hate, and what allowed him to escape from it was also hate. Even if I really go in and find him, I'm afraid I can't change his mind. It's okay, it's okay. Everything has a destiny, let's see how his destiny is. After saying these words, Yu Xiaozhenren shook the dust and turned into a light escape and left. After Yu Xiaozhenren left, Yu Xinrui stood for a long time, looking at the door of the mortal secret realm ahead. She silently prayed in her heart, I don't ask you to come out of here in 5 months to shine, I just hope you live well. Chapter 10. No Misfortune. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, this is a white world, with endless snow everywhere. The distant mountains, the earth, and the forests are all covered with pure white snow. The cold wind howled in Lu Qing's ear, causing pain in his face like a knife or sword. Looking up from afar, the snow and mist filled the air, and I don't know how long the road ahead is. This is already the 12th day he has entered the mortal secret realm. During this 12-day period, he has collected all the heavenly materials and earth treasures needed for the alchemy prescription. The only thing missing now is a place for alchemy, and what he needs to do now is to find a suitable place for alchemy. The reason why he chose such a place is because he has not reached the realm of golden elixir and cannot use Dan fire to refine pills, so he needs a natural place of fire. Along the way, Lu Qin found a cliff that could cover most of the wind and snow. He sat cross-legged and took out the spiritual flowers and herbs he had collected in his arms for the past few days. Without hesitation, he swallowed one of the inferior ice attribute spiritual herbs in one gulp. At this moment, what Lu Qin needs to do is to elevate his cultivation to the third level of qi cultivation before reaching the location of the earth fire. The reason for this is that he does not have a Dan fire, nor a Dan refining furnace. However, this cannot defeat him, who was known as the three great masters in his previous life. Without a Dan refining furnace, he can replace it with an array, which requires his cultivation to reach at least the third level of qi cultivation. Eating spiritual herbs and flowers directly is a major taboo. Unrefined spiritual herbs and flowers have violent spiritual power, and if not properly controlled, their meridians will be damaged. The higher the level of spiritual herbs, the greater the damage to the meridians. However, now Lu Qin can no longer control so much. Another point is that if the attributes of the spiritual grass are different from the spiritual root attributes of the cultivator themselves, the damage will be doubled. However, just as he swallowed the spiritual grass into his mouth, it turned into a sharp and aggressive spiritual force. As Lu Qin also increased his vigilance and prepared to absorb it, the water spirit sword in his mouth trembled. The cultivation experience in his past life told him that the water spirit sword must have some special significance in its movement at this time. He did not hesitate to immediately activate the Heaven-Slaying Sword Classic. As expected, with his operation of the Heavenly Sword Scripture, the spiritual power transformed by the spiritual grass was directed towards the Tanzhong, and ultimately absorbed by the water spirit sword. After absorbing this ice attribute spiritual grass, the water spirit sword immediately emitted a faint chill throughout its body. Is this? At this moment, Lu Qin was a bit uneasy. He was very certain that the water spirit sword that had absorbed the spirit grass should no longer be just a first-grade water spirit sword, but a third-grade ice spirit sword. The reason why he said it was close was that the chill on the spirit sword had not yet reached the level of a third-grade ice spirit sword. But even so, it still made Lu Qin's heart surge, because what has happened now has already shown that the sword embryos condensed from the Zhu Tian Sword Classic can actually improve their level by absorbing heavenly materials and earth treasures. Previously, he had always thought that at this stage, the 8 wilderness sword would only be of the first grade, and this was undoubtedly the most regrettable aspect for him. After all, even if he gathered in the 8 wilderness, the sword element was equivalent to 8 times that of the same realm. However, if he encountered someone with a sword grade that was significantly higher than him, his advantage would not be so huge. But now, this biggest regret has disappeared. The Zhu Tian Sword Classic truly deserves to be inherited by the Sword Ancestor. Taking his mind back, Lu Qin turned his gaze to a pile of spiritual flowers and grass placed on the ground, including several ice attribute spiritual flowers and grass, which can be used to enhance the ice spirit sword. But Lu Qin hesitated a bit. While he wanted to improve his sword cultivation skills, what he needed most at the moment was to enhance his own magic cultivation skills. 5 months later, he was more likely to win the outer gate. Moving into Yanyu Peak was not only because he remembered his past marital relationship and wanted to continue his relationship with Yuxinrui, but also partly because he needed to use Yanyu Peak, a place without complex forces, to develop his own strength and enhance the strength of Qingtian Gate. So the outside door is more important than him. Making a good choice, Lu Qin didn't hesitate to swallow a spiritual grass again. This time, he ignored the unusual movements of the ice spirit sword and started using the forest and everything technique to absorb the spiritual power of the spiritual grass. The spiritual power transformed from spiritual grass entered the meridians, and the meridians immediately felt a tingling sensation. He knew that as long as he carefully controlled it, he would not let the spiritual power of spiritual grass collide directly with the meridians, which was completely within the range of the meridians. Thanks to his thousands of years of cultivation experience in his past life, half an hour later, Lu Qing finally refined the spiritual power of the first spiritual grass and returned it to the dantian. The cyclone in his dantian also grew stronger. After a short rest, Lu Qing processed it as usual, and in the blink of an eye, 6 days had passed. Lu Qing's cultivation had finally reached the third level of qi refining. He only needed to thoroughly refine the spiritual power transformed from the last spiritual flower in his body, and then he could go to the location of the earth fire to refine pills. But at this very moment, Lu Qing felt something. While practicing, he released his divine consciousness, but when he saw the surging snow and mist ahead, something could rush out of it at any time. And in the next moment, a woman dressed in black and strong attire rushed out of the snow mist. This woman can be said to be heroic, with a jade-like face full of determination and sharp eyes. Her black hair was erect behind her head, clean and neat, running like a black panther, agile and elegant. The woman obviously didn't expect there to be someone else here. At the moment she saw Lu Qing, a hint of surprise flashed in her sharp eyes, and then she coldly shouted, "Let's go." However, at this moment, where did Lu Qing go? If he moved the spiritual power of the spiritual grass in his body, he would lose control. In his heart, he cursed at the dead woman, and Lu Qing's gaze turned to look behind her. As the woman rushed out of the snow mist, a giant ape over 3 feet tall followed closely. Seeing this giant ape, Lu Qing was taken aback by the snow domain demon ape. The snow domain monster ape is the strength of the later stage of foundation building, and has already stood at the pinnacle of existence in this mortal secret realm. He remembers that this snow domain monster ape lives in the location of the earth fire he is going to. Previously, Lu Qing had planned to make all necessary preparations before going to meet this snow domain monster ape, but he didn't want to encounter this woman here in advance. Seeing Lu Qing motionless, a hint of hesitation flashed in the woman's eyes, but she still stopped and landed on the ground, twisting her body and punching the snowy ape behind her. The snowy ape roared with anger, and its fist, as big as a clay pot, met it. Its 2 fists collided with each other, and the woman was thrown away with a punch. After sliding on the snow for a while, she sprayed out a mouthful of blood. The snow domain monster ape was extremely excited, and his fists smashed his chest with a loud bang. Lu Qing's gaze swept over the woman who was struggling to fight again not far from him, and he let out a sigh of sorrow in his heart. If the woman had not stopped because of him just now, knowing she was defeated and would have turned around to fight against one of them, or if she had turned around and fled now, using him to attract the demon ape, even if Lu Qing had risked being injured by the spiritual power of the spiritual grass, she would have abandoned this woman. But now, step back behind me. Lu Qing whispered. Zhaozhuiyuan.com. The woman was taken aback at the words and thought to herself, this person only has 3 levels of qi refining. Why should I retreat behind him with only 10 levels of qi refining? But when she saw Lu Qing's calm and confident face, she chose to follow Lu Qing's words. Just as the woman retreated behind Lu Qing, the snow domain monster ape had launched another attack. It ran like the wind on all 4 limbs, causing the earth to shake and the white snow to flutter. Lu Qing's eyes lit up and he snapped, "Ice Spirit Sword, go." A burst of blue light first pierced through the forelimbs of the snowy ape, and as it ran wildly, the snowy ape let out a painful roar and fell unsteadily. However, the flying sword that pierced the snowy ape did not stop there. In the middle of the sky, a rapid rotation and reverse body shot through the body of the snow domain monster ape again, and in the next moment, blue light and shadow intertwined. The flying sword kept turning on the snow domain monster ape, and in an instant, it was unknown how many holes it had pierced through its body. Until the last sword, in the unwilling roar of the snow domain monster ape, the flying sword penetrated its brain and flew back into Lu Qingtan, and everything finally returned to calm. The cold wind remains, piercing to the bone. The woman behind Lu Qing was already dumbfounded. He never expected that this guy with 3 levels of qi refining would still be a sword cultivator capable of instantly killing the snow domain demon ape. Puff. At the moment when the flying sword returned to the underworld, Lu Qing spewed out a mouthful of blood, which brought back the woman's shocked heart. Are you okay? Lu Qing took a breath and slowly looked up. Do you think I'm okay? How can I help you? The woman reacted quickly and asked hastily. If you have the heart to help me find these few spiritual medicines, jade leaf flowers, chiwei roots, qianxiu vines. And then take me to Ice Flame Lake. After struggling to say these words, Lu Qing couldn't help but faint.